How do you differentiate yourself from 8 billion other people? Exclusivity. Whether it be an exclusive car or a collector's item, people have always sought a way to be special compared to others. The same can be said about exclusive information. It's a way to stand out compared to everyone else and maybe even profit greatly from it. That's exactly what KatnChat, otherwise known as CatLiente, thought would happen with her. Because when an artist reached out to her claiming to have been mistreated by one of the most beloved VTubers in the space, she probably thought of views, subscribers, and a whole lot of money. What she got instead, though, was her worst nightmare, with the entire situation blowing up on her face while simultaneously reigniting a major drama from the past in which she tried to clickbait another VTuber's cancer. And when she tried to respond, she ended up doxing her by mistake. Bro, this is a disaster. So to say that this situation is wild is an understatement, but it's also very confusing with a lot of information stretching back many months. So of course, as always, I figured that we have to talk about it and make it clear. So let's do this. So, the drama tuber that ignited this wildfire goes by the name of CatLiente, otherwise known as Cat. She wasn't always a drama tuber though. What really put her on the map was being an advice tuber, making content centered around advice regarding content creation. As you can see in her TikTok, her username hasn't changed. It's still CatLiente Stream Advice. Her bio says Twitch Advice, and her most popular, most viral TikToks to this day are stream and content creation advice. Nothing much has changed in her coffee page either. Her bio says Stream Advice TikToker and Twitch partner. I am a streaming and content creation educator who focuses on teaching streamers and creatives how to make full-time content creation a reality. If you go to her shop, you can see that there's a lot of things that are on sale, most of them free. Free resources, guides, and hell, even a 3-month coaching package in which she assists you in content creation for 3 whole months. What really put her on the map though were her free resources and especially her guides. She had really made her mark in the year of 2022, and this right here is an example. This is a free sponsorship guide that breaks down the types of sponsorships, what to expect from them, how to negotiate, etc., all for free. Something that can tremendously help an up-and-coming content creator without an agency. At the time, this is really what she was known for. Detailed guides, free resources, and above all, never before seen transparency, right? This right here is an example. She did this for a few months. It's from November 2023, and it's her revealing how much she earned in October with a very detailed breakdown from all the different sources. This, of course, only served to add even more credibility to all the resources, guides, and even coaching that she was offering. She wasn't just making up these things on the fly. She had proof that they were working, and people loved it. This right here is a screen cap of her YouTube channel back in May of 2023. And as you can see, her YouTube channel followed the same path as her Twitch, TikTok, and Coffee, making content centered around advice, streaming equipment, and even editing. But of course, seeing that we're now here in 2025 talking about a drama tuber, there would come a time when her content would take a huge turn. It all started in mid-2024 when she would make the video titled "This VTuber Was Scammed," in which a VTuber paid $650 for a model, but it turned out the artist didn't cut it well enough for it to be rigged. Kat would cover the drama and would see unprecedented success compared to her other videos. She would see an opportunity and would continue uploading VTuber art-related drama, targeting art misunderstandings, AI art, stolen art, traced art. She would cover any art controversy in the VTuber niche. And this is when she would make the full shift from advice tuber to drama tuber. But it wasn't all smooth sailing from here. Kat would find herself in a couple of controversies regarding how she would cover certain drama aspects of the VTuber community. And on January 2025, she would change her channel name from CatLiente to KatnChat, going through some sort of a rebrand. And regarding these controversies, one of them in particular came back to haunt her today. But this was only after she had sparked a wildfire that she was not capable of handling. The making of this video, titled "Mismanagement of Dokibird's PC Auction Led an Artist On for a Year." And as you can tell from the like to dislike ratio, it wasn't really received very positively by the VTuber community. Here's the thing, regardless if you're a VTuber watcher or not, what I want you to understand here is that just at face value, just the thumbnail and the title are already a very big deal without even watching the video. And for you to understand that, we have to briefly talk about Dokibird. Her rise to fame occurred when she was recruited as an English VTuber under the massive Japanese talent corporation Nijisanji. She went by the name of Selen Tatsuki and at the time had built a very loyal audience that truly appreciated how much effort and sacrifice she put into providing them with the best sort of content and merchandise. Among other things, of course, like how she was funny and entertaining, etc. On February 5th, 2024, she was terminated in one of the worst ways possible by her corporation, with the termination still having a community note up to this day. The whole thing was one of the biggest PR disasters in recent history, so much so that Nijisanji's stock price tanked at the time. This inadvertently started the downfall of the entire English branch of this massive multi-billion-dollar corporation. And if you're interested in learning more, then you can check out my playlist on my channel titled The Nijisanji Drama Arc. What you really need to understand in this video though is that part of the disagreements she had with Nijisanji when she worked with them was related to art. She had this habit of depleting her own personal bank account in order to ensure the best quality music video production, art, merchandise for her community. One of the biggest disagreements she had with Nijisanji was funding this music video out of her own pocket because Nijisanji refused to. She ended up paying $15,000 from her own personal bank account in order to get this video funded and made. That's obviously a ridiculous amount of money, and Nijisanji still took this video down. This is a re-upload. Not to mention that while this drama was going on, artists came out to say that Nijisanji had not paid them on projects they had hired them for, instead only receiving money from Dokibird, paying them from her personal bank account. So this is why Kat's video with the title is such a big deal. Whether it be as the corporate VTuber Selen Tatsuki or as the independent VTuber Dokibird, she's always been known to hire the best and compensating them like no one else. Speaking of Dokibird, this used to be her independent persona before joining Nijisanji. When she left that company, she resumed her activities here, and then went on to become one of the biggest independent VTubers on the planet. So claiming that she had led on an artist for a year with the thumbnail claiming minus $6,000 is pretty much claiming that she is two-faced, that the Dokibird that everyone is familiar with is actually not the real Dokibird. This comes at a time where this had already happened barely a couple weeks ago. A very big VTuber was exposed as being two-faced for years, which unfortunately made it probable that maybe this is true, maybe Dokibird actually is two-faced. Hence why the video has over 100,000 views. But why the dislikes? Why is Kat in trouble right now? Why are people turning against her? Well, the video is 1 hour and 48 minutes long. I watched every single second so that you don't have to, and we're gonna go through everything together to truly understand what the hell is going on. Starting with the first few seconds. Watch.
This is tea so piping hot, none of you guys have actually heard about it before because it has not been posted anywhere. This is about a big VTuber by the name of Dokibird and a charity stream that Doki had hosted over a year ago.
So right from the start, guys, this tea is piping hot. This is a news story exclusive to Kat that's never been posted anywhere. She has the scoop over the fact that Doki has been leading on an artist for a year in regards to a charity auction. Okay, in her little teaser in the beginning of the video, she's reading off of a Google Doc, right? Now I know at this point you probably have Google Doc exhaustion, okay, but there's a very big question here. Who wrote it? Most people couldn't stand watching the video for 40 seconds to determine that and assumed that this entire thing was actually written by the artist who was, quote unquote, led on by Doki for a year. But it's actually not the case at all. Watch.
I made this document, so I want to make sure I'm covering this correctly. Is this real? Unfortunately, it is. So
right off the bat, okay, Kat wrote this document that she's going to read for over 1 hour and 48 minutes. This is edited. She actually streamed it on her Twitch days before the upload, and it was over 3 hours of reading and talking. She had very briefly published this document before privating it, but as you can see here in activity, it shows that she was the last one to edit it. At the same time, someone actually archived this entire document before she privated it. I'll be leaving the link in the description, but this is 51 pages that Kat herself wrote regarding the entire incident. One can safely assume that the artist involved in the situation reached out to Kat personally and gave her all these screenshots of private DMs that occurred with Doki, her management team, and whoever else. But Kat was the one who summarized them in text. The reason why this is so important is because throughout the document, there will be some interesting takes. One could understand these takes if the artist had written this document themselves, but the fact that Kat wrote them is kind of weird. So for most of this video, she's reading off the Google document that she personally wrote. This means that we can read it together. However, sometimes Kat will give her personal opinion on what's going on. This is when I'll be showing you her takes, and you'll slowly start to understand why this video is currently sitting at 14,000 dislikes. Let's do this. So Kat's document starts off with context. Dokibird hosted an auction that ended March 3rd, 2024 for a custom-built PC designed by the artist, with the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation being the charity of choice for the Tiltify. The PC is valued at $3,500 USD and the winner bidded $6,600 USD. Now you might be wondering, what the hell is a Tiltify? Well, it's actually a really cool platform. You can start a fundraiser and people can donate to it, and when they do, the money goes directly to the charity. It doesn't go to the streamer or the content creator's bank account. This means that you can guarantee any money you're donating isn't going to get scammed. There are many different ways to raise money on the platform. One of them is a charity auction. This is where you have multiple different items that you can bid for, and the highest bidder wins the item. The bid would go to charity, and the person who gave the highest bid would receive the item. So for example, custom mousepad starts at $30. Let's say you bid $100, you win, the $100 gets sent to the charity, and you receive the mousepad. The items on the auction are not controlled by Tiltify though, it's controlled by the person who created the auction, in this case, Dokibird. Now this document has this section titled Proof of Doki stating artists would be paid, attaching a tweet that Dokibird made around 2 weeks before the auction began. The tweet says, "To all artists and creators, I'll be running a charity auction and stream next week, and I'm looking for people who will like to collab and work with me to make one-of-a-kind Doki-themed items, plushies, figures, sculptures, signed work prints, etc. to auction off for charity. I will be paying for your service. Please send your portfolio to dokicanread@gmail.com. The items do not need to be completed before the auction starts, so don't worry about any rush. The auction will specifically go towards the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, which looks at funding research into cures and improving treatment for mental illness globally. There will also be other items in the auction like one-on-one gaming sessions with me, etc." Kat's document then links a clip of Dokibird. Here's what Kat showed in her video.
I am providing the money for shipping for all of these items, so do not worry if you're wherever you live, you're like, oh my god, would they be able to ship it there? I will be providing the money for the shipping to the creators who will be shipping these products to you if you win the auction. And also, even if like some of the items are not made by me, it's not coming from me, I will be sending an exclusive postcard to each winner of the auction.
So this was the clip that was included in Kat's video. The actual link in this document directs me to the entire 9-hour VOD regarding this charity, and the timestamps to begin with are wrong. Right? In any case, what she's really trying to drive home here is that Doki is citing a manager that's helping her get access to Tiltify since it was in closed beta, as well as setting up other aspects of the auction. In other words, this manager one at the time was her right-hand man. She then really emphasizes the point that Doki said she'd be paying for shipping for the products, and then says that in this VOD, Doki mentions having a duplicate of each item for herself to twin with the auction winners. The reason why she mentions this is that this information will not be mentioned to the artist in question. Then we get to the private messages between the manager and the artist. The conversation starts off in Discord by the manager on the 27th of February 2024, saying, "Hi there, I'll be providing any updates or comments Doki might have moving forward, and we'll be using a mock-up if you choose to provide one by the 2nd of March. Or we can use photos in your portfolio if you aren't, which is totally understandable due to the turnaround time. We don't have a super tight timeline, so keep that in mind. You can take all the time you need on this project, but we would like a general estimate to provide during the auction, and ideally we'd like to get an idea of the price as Doki is planning on paying all the artists she has chosen. If we're able to potentially work something out with Height, we can explore that too. Height is a PC building company that has collaborated with Doki in the past." The artist then says, "Hey, thank you for accepting my request and getting back to me. I'm glad to hear about the timeline. That gives me a lot of reassurance since custom projects always take a lot of time and work to put together. I was already in talks with Height, so I've looped in my contact and I'm waiting to hear back from him at the moment." The manager and the artist then proceed to talk about maybe looping in Height to provide some parts for the PC, and then the artist says, "I've also got a mock-up ready if you'd like to see it." To which the manager says, "Yes, please." Now get this. The artist says, "Usually I wouldn't start work on a project or provide a mock-up before agreeing payment terms and stuff, but I trust that we can sort that later. Also, this is just a first idea, so it's totally open to suggestions/comments from you guys or Doki. Here's the concept. It's using the Y70 touch case by Height that has a 4K screen on the corner." And the artist continues by saying, "Just to note, my concept art also never looks like the final product. The final product is usually 10 times better, lol. So even though both are cordial and responding immediately, things are a bit messy from the get-go. The first thing that was provided was a mock-up. No contracts, no agreements, no timelines. Everything was completely up in the air. Nevertheless, the manager continues and says, "We're in talks with the marketing executive producer of iBuyPower in collaboration with the design team at Height. I'll definitely be able to give you a sure answer on whether or not it would be possible to get access to the items for our upcoming project for this, which would be amazing for everyone involved, later today. Also, that looks absolutely amazing. We could not have imagined a better design." The artist then says, "Oh, interesting that iBuyPower are involved. If it's their marketing executive producer, then this is definitely going to be big." To which the manager says, "As far as payment terms go, Doki is 100% going to pay whatever you charge for the PC. Once we have an idea of the final cost, we can finalize everything then." So it seemed that a contract, something in writing, something, real, was going to come once they had an idea of the final cost. But if only things were that simple. Here's what Kat had to say about this. Red flags in the project. The first red flag/issue is that management published the PC concept for the Tiltify auction without confirming a budget with the artist or that the work could be edited. To note, in the Tiltify auction, the design was listed as potentially being subject to change. It said, "Concept art is subject to change and winners will be notified of all necessary changes to the final product." Kat continues and says, "Also to note, the artist told management they were going to be OOO, which means out of office, starting March 1st for another project. And on that day, management messaged asking for edits to be made and listing the item onto Tiltify." So this is when things start to get messy. On the 1st of March, the manager messages the artist and says, "The Y70 Touch height case that the artist had initially used in their mockup was facing severe supply disruptions. So they wanted to remove the whole touch aspect of it because they could get the case just without the touchscreen." Then the next day, the auction went live. The artist and the manager at this point had not talked about specifics when it came to price. There was no established understanding as to how much the PC would cost or how much the auction starting price should be valued at. So seeing that the artist was out of office, the manager seems to have gone to the PC part picker page of the artist to look at previous work and used the price of that previous work as reference, being 3,500 USD. According to Kat, the artist is based in the UK and the build cost £3,500, not 3,500 USD, which means it was more around 4,300 USD. She then says this price estimate is also extremely confusing. As mentioned previously, Doki had mentioned wanting a duplicate of each item to twin with the auction winner. A second PC is never mentioned to the artist, nor does the 3,500 USD price tag clarify whether that's 3,500 for one PC or 3,500 for the cost of two PCs to be built. Finally, going to PC Part Picker to estimate the build cost for a PC will cause a huge issue down the line, as that is only the quote for the PC's parts with no addition of labor costs. The third issue is management. In the Tiltify auction, it was listed the buyer could choose their own specs. And that is indeed the case. The Tiltify page says this piece is a custom-built Doki-themed PC. Since the PC has not been built yet, you are able to have some control over the creative process and specs of the PC. The PC is valued at 3,500 USD, and the parts in the PC will fall in line with the general PC of that pricing. Example, a previous build of the artist with roughly the same cost, showing the PC Part Picker page. You want to know what's really interesting though? When I go to the PC Part Picker page of that list from that exact PC back in December of 2023, I can see that the total price in USD plus the components from Amazon.co.uk equal around 3,600 USD. We're talking purely parts here with no labor, of course. This was exactly what the manager was intending to do, getting a rough cost of the build itself. Nowhere does this indicate that 3,500 USD would be 3,500 pounds in the UK. This is something that the document never mentions. Just keep that in mind. Kat then says this is an issue as no upfront budget was provided to the artist. On the 4th of March, the manager sends a DM to the artist and says, "Good morning. Just wanted to send a small update. I'll message the winner today to confirm their shipping details and all that good stuff. I'm happy to be the go-between for you both, but if you and the winner are comfortable, I can get you both connected on Discord to streamline things for you guys as far as figuring out specs and stuff. Just let me know and I'll make it happen." Secondly, regarding payment for the PC, I know that's probably up in the air at the moment, so we can stay in contact and figure that out as the project progresses or as we have a more clear idea of the projected cost. I did base the market value off of your previous builds, and we would like to stay around that general cost for the parts themselves, but would like to give the buyer some wiggle room as far as you know. Potentially going for a cheaper CPU cooler option to allow more money to go towards storage/RAM if that's something they'd like to do, but we won't know until we speak to the buyer. A few days later, on the 7th of March, the artist says, "Hey, I've tied up my brand deal from last weekend, so let me catch up with your messages." The document then continues about a brief confusion regarding height. It's not really that relevant, so we won't waste time on it. The next part is about communication issues, in which the artist on the 21st of March is saying, hey, thank you so much for your patience with my replies. I've been recovering from an addiction lately, which has been a huge struggle, and I feel that my response time has definitely taken a hit, so I wanted to mention it briefly to provide some additional context and transparency, and also to hold myself accountable. I wasn't 100% sure whether it was relevant or not, but since it's affecting my professional conduct, I felt it was best for you to be informed moving forwards. I hope you can understand. Then the artist says, that's fantastic, thank you so much, that clears up my worries surrounding that side of things. This is in reply to a message that the manager had left them on the 12th of March. After the clarification about the whole height confusion thing, he said, and of course, I've made it clear to the winner that you are not going to be involved with any tech support, and that if they have any issues they may experience, they have to go through a third party. So the artist's reply came a week late. And as far as we know, based on these screenshots, there were no other DMs in between this time frame, this entire week. This means that when the manager mentioned how much the PC would cost and the details surrounding it, the artist could have said something about it multiple times. These red flags that Kat had brought up should have been mentioned back then by the artist. In fact, forget about the red flags. So many specifics were still up in the air. And the expectation was that after the auction had ended, the artist would start work on the PC right after. But look at this. After the artist had said that they were dealing with an addiction and that they were holding themselves accountable, they said that they read everything, let's do some cooking on the hardware for this build, and I'll get back to you with a list of possible suggestions. This might take some time while I'm figuring out what works best for the buyer's needs. I noticed that he said that he's going to be in the USA from June to late August. If the PC is completed during this time, would you be happy to have the completed build shipped to your address and then handle shipping to the buyer when they're back in the country? I may need to relocate apartments during the period they're not in the USA, so I would much prefer that. So bear in mind, here we're talking about the possibility of the PC being done in the summer of 2024. Okay, keep that in mind for later. The manager then says, that's okay, I've been pretty sick as well. I've also been away and not here much. I hope things get better for you. I know how hard it is to quit from my own experiences. He's referring to the addiction that's been blurred out here. Then he continues, if it comes down to it, we're more than happy to handle the shipment of the PC. Then says, sounds good, there's no rush, so take your time and take care of yourself. Overall, a very wholesome conversation, right? Now, a month later, on the 17th of April, there's been zero communication, and I mean zero, as far as we know, on Discord between the artist and the manager. The manager then says, hi there. The winner of the auction has requested to establish contact with you to discuss details of the PC himself and to check with you on any updates you may have for him. I did let him know that you were working on getting those parts figured out, but he still requested to make contact. I can send over your Twitter if you're comfortable. No response whatsoever from the artist. Another month fully passes by. We're now 2 months since the last time the artist has said anything, and the manager says, hi again, just wanted to give you a heads up, I've chosen to part ways with Dokibird, and anything regarding the auction items will be handed off to my replacement once I leave on the 31st of this month, so the 31st of May. If it's alright with you, I'd love to include your socials in the onboarding document I'm passing along. They will handle everything moving forward, including any updates necessary for Doki and any communication with the auction winner. Please let me know if that's alright, and I'll include your Discord/email for my replacement. Kat says, as you can see from the screenshot, management changed, and the artist was reached out to by Manager 2 on June 8th asking about the status of the project. So bear in mind, we're now almost 3 months since the last time the artist has even communicated with Doki's team. This is the email from Manager 2 saying, hello, this is Ryby. I am the replacement assistant for Manager 1, and I'm following up on the custom PC charity item with regards to its current status. To my knowledge, in the turnover documentation I was given, the item has not been fulfilled yet, and Manager 1 had issues getting updates from you in a timely manner. It has been a few months since the charity auction ended, and we're trying to wrap up all our commitments regarding this project. If you are still open to finishing this commission or have been working on the commission and have an estimated delivery date, please give us an update within 2 to 3 business days. Otherwise, we may have to go to a plan B and either reimburse the winning bidder or find a different custom PC builder. If you cannot fulfill this item, we understand, life gets difficult, just let us know and we'll get out of your hair. Sincerely, Ryby, assistant at Dokibird. Kat says, the artist responded June 18th asking for more information but confirming they still wish to fulfill the project if the option is still available. So even though Manager 2 specified please reply in 2 to 3 business days, the artist replied in 10 days. Now, part of the email is hidden, but for the most part, the artist says, hey, listen, to offer the briefest of explanations, I ran into untreated health complications and had to get signed out of work or whatever, and then proceeded to apologize for the delays and any inconvenience that was caused. Then the artist lays out some points, specifying that they communicated with the buyer through email and that the buyer wanted a PC capable of machine learning and that he'd be happy to pay for the additional parts. The artist's initial response was that, yes, I could do that, but I'd have to come up with a brand new spec list, run it by technicians, do the calculations, etc., etc. As much as I'd love to provide that service for the winner, I understand now that I'm not able to handle the extra work, and I would much prefer to use the pre-existing specs from my cinnamon roll build, since this is what Manager 1 based the Dokibird PC specs on. Then the artist specified that they were worried that the height case that they wanted to use was discontinued. They couldn't meet demand anymore, so the case with the screen was not available. They thought that since one of the biggest aspects of that PC was a screen with Dokibird on it, that it would maybe look boring. They then said, I was hesitant about Manager 1 asking to connect me to the winner, but perhaps that would be best so I can consult them directly. Dan says, I think that covers everything I needed to communicate about. It's mainly been the fee and the scope that have been overwhelming, but I'm confident I can start work pretty much immediately once those details are sorted, and I'm determined to fulfill this. Since I just wrapped up a project with MSI, I can give you a more accurate time frame for the project's completion. I estimate it would take a minimum of 6 weeks to complete the project and roughly 12 weeks at maximum. Alternatively, I understand if you've chosen to go with Plan B or a different PC builder at this stage, especially as your email did say please reply in 2 to 3 days. I can only offer my apologies for the major dropping of the ball. I hope to hear back from you soon, and once again, thank you so much for your patience. All the best, Artist. So look, in any industry, if someone tells you reply within 2 to 3 days and you reply 10 days later, I think it's safe to say you're either fired or you lost the job. Not to mention that this was, as far as we know, the first time the artist had even communicated with Dokibird's team since the 21st of March. Let's also not forget that the artist said yes to the buyer's demands and then thought, you know what, I can't do it. I can't do a PC that does machine learning. And we still have no mention about how much it would cost, with the artist not mentioning at all how much they want in compensation, how much it would cost, not talking about the specifics. So look, the whole thing is a mess so far, and things were kind of starting to make sense. Manager 1 should have been more insistent and proactive, but instead was way too laid back and seemed like he didn't really care. Well, that's because he ended up leaving. He already had a foot out the door and probably didn't care as much as he should have. The artist, on the other hand, would just disappear for like way too long. And while health issues suck, it's not enough of a reason to keep your clients in the dark. One simple message, one simple email, and you can let them know so that way they go for a plan B. So what did Kat have to say about this? Well, let's see.
And scope. So yeah, basically the artist offered a couple options. It was like either 1, they would complete the build, they apologize for being late. Option 2, the buyer would be refunded. And option 3, a different builder would be used. January 20.
Oh, cool. The artist apologized for being 2 months late. Let's not even take a second to talk about that. This is going to be a growing trend throughout this video. Anyway, back to the document. Kat continues the document and says, then, January 2025, Dokibird personally reached out to the artist in Twitter DMs and through their personal website to put the artist, the charity winner, and a member of Doki's staff, which will be the 3rd iteration of the management team who will be in green, into a group chat together. So Manager 2 had been replaced by Manager 3. Dokibird had created a Discord group chat with Manager 3, the artist, herself, and the auction bid winner for the PC. Just so you know, so that you're not confused with the timelines, Dokibird only personally reached out months after that email conversation we just saw. So now we're on January 10th, 2025, 10 months after the charity auction had even begun. So as far as we know, this is how the DM started, with Doki saying, the winner of the charity auction has been unhappy with the wait and I was pulled in to fix the issue as it has grown bigger than it should be. The next day, the artist says, hey Doki, I haven't had any messages about the charity PC since last summer, so I honestly wasn't sure what was going on. The next day, Doki says, what is your Discord? Is it okay if I add you and the charity winner plus one of my staff to fix this issue? To which the artist said, yes, although I need to go over a few details with your staff before jumping into a Discord group chat with your team plus the auction winner. My Discord is blank. Let me know your staff's Discord name so I can keep an eye out for them. To which Doki says, okay, his Discord will be blank. And then 13 days later, we can see the artist saying, hi Doki, we really need your personal involvement in the group chat. Kind of giving you a spoiler over the fact that things don't go as smoothly as planned. Kat says, at this point, the artist was confused, as since they had not received a response back from email, they had assumed management was going with Plan B, reimbursing the winner or finding another custom PC builder. The artist was reluctant to join a group chat with the charity winner, as at this point, the artists themselves still had no idea how much they're getting paid for the project or any other questions answered. They requested to speak privately with the new management/staff member first to sort out payment, budget, and other details so as to not appear unprofessional in front of the client. So here we can see Manager 3 saying, hi artist, I'm Management 3, part of Dokibird's staff team. I have been working for Doki since August, and before that you had contact with Manager 1, most likely regarding the charity auction. I'm unsure how exactly this came to be and why Doki has to pay this out of her own pocket and the item isn't donated, but this has been before my time. Regardless, this is the item. The PC had a fair market value of 3,500 USD at the time, a year ago, and from what I understand is that the person that asked for the PC also had some additional requests that they were willing to pay for themselves. At the moment, I feel we need to find a solution to what you can deliver for that amount currently, what the auction winner is happy with, and what we can do to remedy the situation. situation, 1-year-old specs can be an issue. I personally think we need to look at the charity item and update it and what it would currently cost for you to fulfill. Then we should get in direct DM contact with the bidder of the auction and verify the specs and tell him this is what we can do for this price. If they seem to want additional specs, then we should, as a team, talk about what that would cost and who would pay for it. So yeah, it's obvious this is a absolute managerial nightmare. If you guys are unemployed or are still in school, this is what it's like to work for a very big company, okay? This is a perfect example. It's constant back and forths with no one understanding what the hell's going on. Manager 3 did start off the conversation aggressively, no doubt frustrated that this has taken so long. But to be fair, one would assume that they had gone with plan B if they hadn't replied in any way, shape, or form to the artist since that last email on June 18th, 2024. There wasn't a single person here who knew what the hell was going on, and Kat continues in the document saying, regarding the underlined statement of I'm unsure why Doki has to pay this out of her own pocket and the item isn't donated, there was an option for artists Doki was working with for the auction to donate their work to be auctioned off for charity. However, Doki, in the previously linked VOD, states that she would cover the pieces artists don't want to donate, nor is there an expectation to donate. The artist then links the tweet we saw initially at the beginning of this document in which Doki says, I will be paying for your service, and then proceeds to say, I'm happy to do a breakdown PDF of what the cost would actually look like for the team if that would be helpful. Kat says, budget conversations begin. Because the PC build was listed as 3,500 USD in the auction, which was not run by the artist but an assumption manager 1 made, this staff member assumed the build would still cost $3,500. The artist provided a PDF including the cost of parts, additional things the bidder wanted, and their hourly wage, and they priced their build service at the National London Living Wage, undercharging below their standard rate. This is due to lack of transparency with the budget and how the artist felt pressured in being responsible to sort this PC mess out. Now look, to be fair, even though Manager 1 used a previous build as reference for the $3,500 price tag, it was still a mistake and it lacked transparency. But the artist also had 3 months to talk with that manager before they left the company to sort this out and make this breakdown PDF of what the cost would be. To me, everyone is at fault here, but to Kat, this is purely Dokibird's management team's problem and the artist is innocent. The bias is starting to show. The artist then says, to make sure I have this right, the services are being paid for like Doki originally said, to which the manager said, yes, these would be paid, originally listed as 3,500 USD, I think. Sorry if this is the wrong number, I'm backtracking the auction from the limited info I was provided. The artist then posts the PDF of how much everything would cost and says, since the build at the auction was based on one of my previous PC builds, I've used components that are equal to the cost and calculated the service in addition to that, like my work, customization, materials, etc. If we agree on these details, I can go straight to the auction winner and discuss the spec that they want replaced. Let me know if you have any questions and we can go over them. Manager 3 then says, oh, but when I calculate the total price of the PDF, it's not around the $3,000 to $5,000 range, but more around 7,200 USD, and then they might even ask for upgrades still, which would be more than what the auction was bid for, which is 6,600 USD. You sure it's the same specs? If so, I'll run it by Doki and staff and see what would be the best choice to continue. Kat says the artist empathized with the bidder who spent $6,600 and hadn't received a PC and began trying to sort the problem out. The artist even started looking for alternative ways to make the build more affordable by contacting their personal brand connections. Here's what Kat had to say about this in her video.
The artist emphasized with the bidder who spent 6.6 thousand USD and hadn't received a PC and began trying to sort the problem out. The artist even started to look for alternative ways to make the build more affordable by contacting their personal brand connections. Again, this is like extra stuff the artist is doing on top of it, like flexing your personal relationships to try to like pull strings and get things done is not an expectation that would happen in scenarios like this. Like this is like going above and beyond. Some people might read this and be like, well, like the artist should have done that to make it as cheap as possible for Doki. It takes a lot to ask your relationships for stuff because you kind of like use up the amount of asks you get. Does that make sense? Like trying to speak on it from like an influencer perspective anyways, I'm not a PC builder. I've built 2 PCs in my life. You can kind of only ask your personal relationships for so many things before they're going to get tired of you. So like you kind of use up one of your like free asks essentially to like pull strings for a charity of auction that kind of is falling apart essentially. Because yeah, some people might be like, oh, why couldn't you just do this from the start? Like you only got to ask so many times. So now
So again, guys, the artist is flexing, really trying everything they can to solve this mess. And while yes, it's definitely admirable that they're trying to go the extra mile and really get this done, I do feel like Kat is acting as if this artist is the plan B artist, as if they weren't here 10 months ago. If this was the plan B artist, absolutely. Let's all shit on Dokibird's management together 100%. But this person was here from the start. And so far, I have no reason to believe that I shouldn't be blaming everyone else equally because they all have a part in this. Like this cost breakdown PDF should have been sent literally within the first week of establishing contact with Manager 1, period. And while Manager 3 is frustrated over the fact that they had to take over this literal shipwreck, they shouldn't take out their frustration on the artist, right? Again, everyone here is to blame. Oh, actually, I just noticed Manager 3's name is not censored here. I gotta do that. Anyway, the document continues. The artist specifies that the original hardware cost of their Cena PC has always been 3,500 British pounds, but they believe it's been mistakenly put down as 3,500 USD in the auction, which is why the pricing is misaligned. They then say that they managed to get support with the PC case, which is worth around 843 USD. So that would alleviate a big chunk of the cost. That's great news. In earlier messages, Manager 3 was trying to confirm, just to be sure. That would be $3,418 plus UK national living wage equals around 2,400 pounds. The artist recommends rounding up the number to 3,500 instead of 3,418. And then Manager 3 says, I will get you in direct contact with Doki and the charity auction bidder to sort these out. Would the pricing be final, so no more additional cost, correct? Like no more shipping / tax cost, etc. Also, we would have to work with the bidder if the specs are okay. To which the artist says, it was agreed with Manager 1 that your team would be handling shipment of the unit. Hence, any packaging, shipping, tax isn't included in the estimate I gave you. This should be written in the PDF I sent. To which Manager 3 says something that's not reassuring in this conversation, so it doesn't make any financial sense at this point. Basically, the item, work, shipping, tax together cost more than the offer of the bidder on the item. I'll ask Doki what she wishes to do since this is very badly arranged by ourselves before my time. But a refund to the bidder is what I'm personally going to advise because this makes very little sense to me. So as I said, not reassuring at all, right? And it's looking like this PC will never be made. But still, the artist carries on as well as Manager 3, and they do end up creating the group chat, with the artist even adding their own assistant to the conversation. In this conversation, we have the top bidder of the auction, the artist assistant, and Management 3, as well as Doki. The group chat conversation starts off with the auction winner saying, hello, I'll just post my timeline here. 1. Contact initiated soon after auction by Manager 1. 2. I said that I wanted to increase the budget of the build's hardware and I would be willing to pay that additional price. 3. There was no communication for a while. After some prodding, I was notified that the artist had medical conditions and that they were gone, and the team was looking for someone to fill in as a new artist. Manager 1 also offered to send in the postcard early, which I did not take the offer. 4. Manager 1 disappeared and subsequently was replaced by Ryby using the same email after several months. The replacement was not notified nor communicated to me about the auction until I sent follow-ups. 5. Ryby apologized and said the budget was allocated. 6. No real additional information of relevance was exchanged after that point, and Ryby went MIA as well. So for the buyer, this is the biggest nightmare, okay? $6,600 expecting to get a PC. It's been 10 months, and Doki's management had done a terrible job staying in touch after Manager 1 had left. The stakes were already really high here. Kat says, the artist then apologizes for the buyer's wait and summarizes their health concerns. They then ask about questions they've had about the project. The artist says to move forward with the project, they need estimated project costs to be confirmed by Doki, to chat about the hardware that the buyer would like upgraded, and to confirm / discuss shipping details. Kat then says this appears to be the first mention of there being a request for 2 PCs, not one, to the artist. The artist never had an agreement with Doki or their management about the first PC, let alone this new second PC that's been mentioned. Kat is referring to this message by the buyer, in which they say, my understanding in the beginning was that it was supposed to be she would be getting one of each item herself, but I believe not long after, Doki was able to obtain a PC and this probably fell off her radar of things she needed, so I'm not sure if there's a requirement to pair up builds to reduce the workload on this. Kat then continues, Doki then joins in, apologizing and moving the conversation forward, in which she says, hi, sorry for the late reply to all this, I'll be reading through the replies. I'll be handling it personally instead of my staff since they are all busy, and it was my fault the PC stuff got delayed since I didn't realize the miscommunication got this bad until I was dragged back in / notified about it a few weeks ago. I really apologize again for the delays on this auction item. If there's something you need from me and I don't reply back in time within 48 hours, just at me again because my messages get super swamped every day. Since I don't think I'll be needing another PC, we can allocate the funds to getting the buyer's PC made with the parts they want, unless you'd like to have us share similar PCs. Please feel free to let me know what you prefer. Kat then continues, saying, the buyer states there's no need for matching PCs, then lists out the desired specs. The artist expresses not being comfortable doing enterprise level builds, and the buyer understands, going back and forth on parts and how the build would look like. A chicken versus egg situation happens, where Management 3 asks for the part list to determine a quote, whereas the buyer and the artist wanted to know what the actual budget for the PC is before choosing parts. Below is a screen grab of a conversation between Manager 1 and the artist about payment that happened early 2024 when this project began. So in this screenshot, we see a message from Manager 1. There are 2 sentences highlighted. The first one says, and figure that out as the project progresses or as we have a more clear idea of projected cost. And the second sentence says, I did base the market value off of your previous builds. This was an attempt by the artist to show Manager 3 just how confusing Manager 1's terms were. Kat then continues and says, for more context, the buyer had the intention of upgrading the build to their desired specs and was willing to pay out of pocket for the difference between the allotted budget and their desired build. A few days later, the buyer says, I see. I was working with the mindset of Doki providing her own budget, and then with that amount, I know how much I may or may not need to add to the pot. So for example, if the total was $4,000 and I'm only willing to contribute $2,000, the total would be $6,000. Or if it was $5,000, the total would be $7,000, which would give an additional $1,000 for me to choose parts I want. Thus, having an idea of how much I have to work with will undoubtedly affect my choices. The artist then says, I'd like to emphasize this point as I've been working with the same mindset. We're both waiting on a budget estimate from Doki as we can't move forward without at least a ballpark. The artist then says, at this point, I'm finding it hard to continue dedicating time to a project without Doki's personal involvement. She's the only one who can make key decisions on behalf of her business, and her input is critical to moving things along. Manager 3, again, it's not censored here, I keep sensing that this project might not make financial sense, and I'm genuinely concerned about the risk of not being compensated for the hours I've already put in. Since we don't have any form of contract yet, I haven't been able to establish standard creative industry practices such as a kill fee. So far, I've already put in significant time with the concept art, drafting up proposals, communications, but without a clear budget, I've been shooting in the dark and undercharging my services in the process, in an attempt to make this work within undefined parameters. I really hope that you can understand that I can't put in any more hours or change the cost breakdown I've already given until I actually know what the upper limit financial constraints are, and what the Doki team is doing to make this work. I want to feel like we're all aligned and giving our best effort to deliver a lovely product to a client who's been waiting for over a year. A day later, Doki then says, hello everyone, sorry again for the late reply. For the budget, it will be $6,000 to $7,000. I'm willing to squeeze an extra $300 to $400 if the parts do go over due to the long wait, so the maximum I'm willing to go will be $7,400 depending on if the parts do go over budget a little bit. So finally, after I don't know, almost a year, we finally had a budget to work with. What happens next is the buyer asking if the 7.4K USD that Doki is willing to pay is including the labor cost of the artist when it comes to building the PC itself, because in their opinion, it should. The artist then emphasizes, saying that at the time of the auction, their rate would have been £32 per hour, saying that they're undercharging their fees at £13.85 per hour, which is the UK London living wage, in order to alleviate the financial pressure that seemed to be getting in the way with the budget, especially since it's for charity. Also expressing confusion over the original charity plan, which is to make 2 PCs with one being meant for Doki. This obviously wasn't the case anymore. Kat then continues in the document saying, Management 3 explains how the charity auction was set up, with a formula that honestly makes absolutely no sense for how these functions typically go. It will be shown later as well, but typically for charity auctions, all items auctioned off are donated by generous donors. People bid on the items, and the total sum of what was bid is donated to the charity. For example, 5 people donate PCs, the host will auction off the PCs and raise $100,000, and thus all $100,000 minus processing fees and such will go to the charity. The host does not pay for the PCs because it was explicitly noted those 5 PCs were a donation with the sole purpose of raising money for said charity. This is a fault of the first management team that set the auction up. Then we see Manager 3 saying, Buyer, I understand what you're saying, but you seem to be missing a few parts. Regularly in charity auctions, there is an existing item or service donated and people bid on this, raising the maximum amount for a good cause. Previous management and Doki set this auction up totally differently. Basically, Dokibird is paying for a lot of these items fully herself. Might as well donate the money directly at that point in my view. Why this was set up this way baffles me until this day. That's why you can sense my need to stay within/around the offered amount, hence my remark. I understand the artist's point of view, and I don't know how the original quote came to be without it being fully completed and transparent before the Doki team communicated it during the auction. Hence, we got an odd situation that we need clarity on. We need a fixed pricing, knowing what it would cost fully so we can decide further if everything fits correctly. Doki is willing to pay an additional amount as shown above since it's for charity and you have been waiting for a year on your item, and we feel really horrid about that. However, until this day, we still don't know what the PC would cost exactly with all factors and additional requests regarding specs. To keep it simple in layman's terms, currently we do not know if the artist's custom PC would cost $5,000 or $10,000 to make, and I would need to know this first so we can decide what to do. The manager then tags the artist and the artist's assistant and says, can you provide a fixed price rating with what you would normally charge and include those elements? We do not want you to underprice yourself, and I'm sorry on my end if it came across as that. All I want is to know the full and completed pricing so we can make a decision instead of talking about it in different ways. So we're at the end of January by now. And I think Manager 3 truly started to understand, okay, truly started to grasp just how screwed up the situation is, how badly Manager 1 and 2 handled this. So they clarified their point of view and asked for a very specific price breakdown so that they can let the artist know if they can actually pay this or if they should just refund the buyer. Kat says, personally, while I do understand this could be Management 3's way of making all aspects of the auction transparent, it does feel guilt-trippy. Regardless whether it's for charity or not, the artist was contacted for their services under the guise it would be paid for. So yeah, look, personally, I don't really see where this was guilt-trippy at all. The way I see this message is someone being like, listen, can we just stop wasting time? Tell me exactly how much you want. I know this is a mess. We don't want to waste your time further, so let us know how much you want, and we'll let you know if we can pay it or not, period. Anyway, here's the spreadsheet that was provided. There are actually two options. The first one is the standard rate at £32 per hour, and the second is at the UK London living wage, which is the minimum wage in London at £13.85 per hour. Now here's the thing you have to understand just looking at this, okay? The PC itself with all the hardware costs 4,000 USD. But in the first option, the artist is claiming that the labor cost would be $6,610. So 5,120 pounds. If we divide this total amount by the hourly wage, we get 160 hours. The artist is claiming, okay, that this PC with the custom design and the hardware that was going to be ordered off of a website was going to take 160 hours to build. Now, I don't know about you, but I've built PCs before. You probably have. I'm telling you right now, even if it's your first time, it's not going to take more than 6 hours. You add a custom design to a case, fine, you know what, add 12 hours, add 24 hours. But unless you're literally blacksmithing a case into existence in an ancient forge, I don't see how 160 hours is honest in any way. Let's assume that they're working 8 hours a day on this. You divide this by 8, that's 20 days. Bear in mind, these are technically business days excluding weekends, which means 1 entire month of work, 9 to 5, excluding weekends. The minimum wage rate asks for less than half of this labor cost, setting at $2,816 or 2,216 pounds. Bear in mind that while this includes shipping, it doesn't include the taxes. So the final cost will easily cost way more than that. This is obviously a crazy price. At this point, Doki could probably build the PC herself and send it to the auction winner. Why pay this much? But you have to wonder, what does Kat have to say when it comes to this spreadsheet? Because to me, and most people who have seen this, it's ludicrous. Let's see.
Artist then provides a spreadsheet with updated pricing. Here is a spreadsheet, and two options were provided. Option 1, option 2, where in option 1, they priced themselves at their fair rate of £32 per hour at the time of auction, and option 2, they priced themselves at London's minimum wage, or whatever the UK London living wage is. So you can see the total estimated cost in USD for option 1 is $11,000. For option 2 is $8,800 with the really, really low labor pricing. So Dokibird responds 2 days later.
Oh, okay, yeah, let's just gloss over that. Pretend that nothing weird is in those spreadsheets. Cool. But don't worry, guys, because the next section in this video is called Doki Responds and Deflects. Seeing that she's been very unbiased so far, I'm sure that this is going to be wonderful. After a couple days, Doki responds and says, just finished reading through everything. I didn't give input on what Manager 3 has mentioned earlier, and it was his own opinion, just in case anyone was wondering that it was my idea, but it was his own, and he wanted to fix things as soon as possible since I wasn't online or was busy to reply in time. I was originally going to get a copy from each auction item, so each person was going to make 2, which should have been communicated to you from my previous management, so I wasn't sure why I weren't informed as other creators were, and I have received the other auction items. But since I already have a custom PC, I'd rather just use the funding to make the PC that buyer deserves instead of making 2. Regarding the pricing, originally what I was told from my previous management, the creator gave us the base price of what it should cost, and we put that as the original opening bid, as well as what it should cost to commission the items and what I needed to pay. At one point, I had to also pay what the bid ended for a few times, while for the majority of others, it was the original base cost, and the huge miscommunication error is one of the reasons why they don't work for me anymore since the auction was set up all over the place. So here she's referring to Manager 1, why he was fired because he set up this auction like someone drunk on like 3 alcohol bottles. She continues, that's why we put 3K original as the starting bid, as that was what I was informed will be the cost, as the original bid is what the item should cost and the ending bid item should never be less than what I actually paid for, which is the case for the majority of the items in the auctions as I paid for the original starting bid cost. I'm unsure how they messed up the communication since the original person who communicated with people does not work for me anymore. Kat says, again, here Doki mentions a few points that had led to the massive miscommunication this build has now become. Firstly, the idea that Doki was going to get an identical copy of each item auctioned to twin with the winners. This was never mentioned to the artist, so up until the previous time it was mentioned for almost an entire year, the artist was under the assumption they were making one PC, not two. Secondly, being the quote, arbitrarily pulled from a previous build the artist did and using the wrong currency, pricing the build at $3,500. Not only is that number incorrect because of the currency and not including labor costs, that number only accounts for the parts of one PC, not two. So okay, it seems that Manager 1 was fired for being an idiot as far as we know, and I think at this point everyone can agree that he is. Doki has been trying to fix all the problems he left her, and she finally made that clear. But is she partly to blame for this? Of course, everyone here is partly to blame in my opinion. Kat's way of summarizing this is definitely interesting though, saying, for almost an entire year the artist was under the assumption they were making one PC, not two. As if the artist has been working on this for a year. They weren't. But hey, listen, it seemed as though for the first time after almost 10 months of waiting, this project was finally going to get somewhere. Until it didn't. A day later, the artist replies and says, hey guys, thanks for your patience whilst I've been tied with self-assessment stuff. Doki, after taking some time to process, I can't accommodate my pricing to the rate in option 2, and I really apologize for offering that and any confusion/inconvenience. While I'm sympathetic to the challenges you faced with previous management, I feel that I've been placed in a position to undercharge to align with your staff's current expectations. This has put me at a disadvantage, as the rate I initially proposed, option 2, doesn't reflect ethical standards for creative work. I appreciate your staff's apology for the miscommunication, as instead I can shift my focus towards providing the best of my professional services. Making sure that I'm paid a fair rate in line with creative industries is tantamount to delivering a great project, and I'm committed to collaborating with you and buyer on this. Going forward, I'd like to ensure I can feel comfortable and confident in my professional skills. I'll be providing my standard work contract and a pro forma invoice which reflects ethical pricing and cost estimates to the best of my ability. I should also let you know that I have a window of availability to complete this work, as I have other bookings scheduled for Q2 and my rate is due to increase in the new financial year. I estimate that the project will take around a month to complete, so ideally if we can get everything agreed, signed and started by end of week, it'll help make sure we get the project done in a timely manner and still have wiggle room in case of any unforeseen delays. Instead of lowering my rate on the invoice, I'm discounting the additional fees like administration, extra hours, etc. that would have typically been charged for. This means that even if the additional fees increase, they will remain discounted without being detrimental to my standard rate, and you won't need to worry about the cost of my fees ticking up before we get the project officially underway. I've also cut a clause regarding revisions out of the contract so that buyer can freely request revisions in line with the original scope if he so chooses. Is there an email address that I can send the documents to, and would you be able to provide me with your business address info, Doki? If you'd like to discuss any parts or have any more questions, please feel free to let me know. I really hope that we can put the initial challenges we've had so far behind us and come to an agreement to get this rolling. Kat says, instead, they discounted additional fees to continue to try to keep the project within scope of the newly expressed budget of $7,400. So look, this is why I'm saying it's everyone's fault here. You proposed two budgets with these detailed Excel sheets, and then a couple days later you're like, oh yeah, you know what? That other option I gave you, forget it. That's so unprofessional. And you know what else is unprofessional? Doki's management. This is like a match made in heaven. It's just insane. Doki then responds and says, I'm on my vacation right now, but is there a way to find a middle ground regarding this, as the initial bidding was your option 2, even if it was in euro, which I was okay with accommodating, but now the pricing increases dramatically. Before we continue, I think Doki made a mistake here. It's not in euro, it's in pounds, but whatever. She was okay with it as long as it was option 2. She then continues, I've had multiple PC builders that were in consideration when approaching me for the PC custom as a charity item, so it feels a little bit of a bigger mess to deal with, as I'm paying out of my own pocket for the final build that would cost more than what I was told initially and a lot more than what the item was won for. I've actually been trying to fix this during my first vacation year, so I apologize if I worded things wrong since I'm typing on my phone while out. If I'm misunderstanding from what I read, option 2 was proposed as a way to help out charity and for a good cause in the initial plannings for the auction. I'm hoping we can negotiate something that fits both, as it was a charity item for a good cause, and this has been an item that suffered the most issues. The opening bid should have been what the original base price was, with upgrades later if the bidding goes higher, so I just hope to find a middle ground. If we don't, I understand, and if you feel uncomfortable and wish to take service elsewhere and focus your other projects, then I also understand, and I would look for other builders for buyers, since I would try my best to give them the PC they've been waiting for. Interesting. Let's see what Kat has to say.
Give them the PC they've been waiting for. This to me is really gross. I'm gonna be straight blunt. I want to be empathetic. I get it. You're a busy creator. You're on your first vacation in years, so you want to relax, which is chill and all. Again, this wouldn't be an issue if this was sorted like a way longer. You know, like if you responded faster before your vacation, then this wouldn't have been an issue over your vacation. But this to me reads very manipulative, because I'm on my vacation and it's the first one I've done in like years. da-da-da-da-da. That's not the buyer or the artist's problem, you know? The buyer and the artist spent so long trying to get you guys to respond, trying to move this forward, and you guys keep like spinning things back. And then 2, I want to break this down. Regarding this as the initial bidding was your option number 2. The initial bidding was not option number 2, meaning the artist undercuts their wages and charges minimum wage. That wasn't the initial bidding. The initial bidding was only for PC parts and never accounted for labor. So that's wrong. And then 3, even if it was in euros, which I was okay with accommodating. This to me also reads manipulative because what do you mean? You have to be okay with accommodating this because you plus your team fucked this up. You didn't directly fuck it up, but your management one was the one that screwed up and got the currency incorrect. So because your team screwed it up, your team now has to absorb the cost of the error. It's not I did you a favor for accommodating this. No, you had to do it because your team screwed it up. But now the pricing increases dramatically. Yes, the price will increase dramatically if you didn't account for labor costs in the original price, which was, again, your team's error. Did Doki know about this? No. Also, it's in pounds, it's not in euros, but that's like a whole side issue. Anyways, now 5, I don't like how Doki writes, I've had multiple builders that were in consideration for the PC custom build as a charity item, so it feels like a bigger mess and I'm paying out of my own pocket. Sure, you have multiple builders that were in consideration, whatever. You chose this builder. So now you gotta rock with it because you chose this builder. You know what it feels weird to be like, well, there are other people willing to do it for cheaper. That's how I read it as, and I don't like that at all because I don't like it when people put freelancers and artists in a bidding war to see who can bid themselves down for the cheapest possible service. That to me feels very exploitative. It feels very manipulative to do that because that's what it reads to me like, oh, other people are willing to do it cheaper, so why couldn't you? Like that's to me the undertone. And then 6, all this like charity, you know. Option 2, so the artist undercutting their prices a lot, was proposed as a way to help out charity and for a good cause in the initial plannings for the auction. I'm hoping we can negotiate something that fits both, as it was a charity item for a good cause. Yeah, it's for charity. It's not the artist's charity, nor did the artist agree to donate something for charity. The artist agreed in the understanding that they were going to be fairly compensated for their service, and whatever charity stuff was happening was on your end. You know, they were just going to get paid to make the PC. That's what they thought was going to happen. And trying to guilt trip the artist to undercharge their rate so much for charity is, to me, icky, because that to me reads really entitled. I know charity is great. Donating to charity is amazing. If you can't donate, please donate. Charities need your money. But trying to guilt freelancers and artists into like undercharging themselves hella for a charity you wanted to do, gave them the impression they were going to be paid fairly for. It sucks that you can't pay rent this month, but it's okay because it's for charity. By the way, don't message me on vacation. That's what it reads as.
You know, this is a very interesting perspective, right? Doki saying I'm on my vacation right now could have been manipulative, but then she mentions, I've actually been trying to fix this during my first vacation in years, so I apologize if I worded things wrong since I'm typing on my phone while out. From my perspective, Doki is saying that she's on vacation to prove that she really cares about this, that she's willing to solve this even while on vacation, and as a way to apologize for the million typos that are present in the paragraph, because she's typing on her phone and not on her PC. She's understandably confused because she was okay with option 2, and then a day later, the artist says, actually, no, forget it. I'm only down to do option 1, which is weird. Why include it in the first place? Yeah, maybe her saying that she's had multiple PC builders that were in consideration does come off as weird, or it also can come off as her voicing her frustrations. But I don't think she's trying to guilt trip the artist to get paid less for charity. No, the artists themselves said, I thought that by undercharging, it could alleviate the financial pressure that seemed to be getting in the way with the budget, and I wanted to make sure the project can still get honored because it's for charity. The artist literally said option 2 exists to alleviate pressure because at the end of the day, this is for charity. But they withdrew it a day later and says, no, I'm only okay with option 1 actually. So Doki's wondering, wait, like I thought option 2 was because this was for charity. Like what's going on? Look, text is rough. You can't see the person's facial expressions. You can't see their body language. It's okay to sometimes misinterpret what's being said, but I just don't understand why Kat chose to look at this message and conclude the worst things imaginable from it, right? Like not a single positive thing here, not a single benefit of the doubt. The artist, on the other hand, is charging 160 hours, aka an entire month, for one PC build, and that is never put into question. It's becoming abundantly clear that there's heavy bias towards the artist, but we're only getting started here because this section in its entirety is called Doki Responds and Deflects, like the second half of the video almost. The artist says, just to clarify, option 2 was what I came up with during the last few weeks speaking to manager 3. It was suggested at first that I should just be donating the PC, and then to make the PC plus work plus shipping fit into the minimum amount that the auction was originally listed for. So I felt under pressure to try and fit within the confines of that, which is why I've undercharged so much. Their proof for this was linking manager 3's DMs with them and underlining multiple sentences. The first one is, Doki has to pay this out of her own pocket and the item isn't donated. The second one is 3,500 USD, and the last few are, we need to find a solution to what you can deliver for that amount currently and what we can do to remedy this situation. But the artist is making it out to be that manager 3 specifically said you should be donating the PC and we need to make 3,500 USD work. This was one of the first messages that the manager 3 had sent to the artist. Manager 1 had made a terrible job letting manager 2 and 3 know about the details, so it doesn't take a genius to understand that manager 3 was just thinking out loud, trying to understand what the hell's going on, trying to make sense of what's going on. I don't see any pressure here to donate the PC. The manager is merely saying that it would only make sense normally in a charity event to do that. However, did their first few messages appear needlessly aggressive? Yeah, they did, and they should have done a better job to be friendly, especially in the beginning of this conversation. But then as you saw from the next conversations with manager 3, they became way more reasonable once they understood how ridiculous the situation was. After some more back and forths, the artist then sends an updated invoice where £3,840 is discounted off the cost, making the total build price £8,622. The artist shows a subtotal of £12,163, which is almost 14,000 USD, but after the discount, it's down to $8,622, which is around $10,000. The artist then says a very interesting sentence. That's the amount of my services already rendered that's gone to charity. So this discount is meant to be a donation to the charity on services that have already been rendered. Interesting, right? Because as far as we know, the artist hasn't even started on the PC yet, right? Keep that in mind for later. Doki then says, like I said earlier, this is almost $5,000 more than what the charity ended, which is what made me uncomfortable, as I really believe the charity amount should be closer. I was open if it was $1,000 more, but this is what makes me uncomfortable. The artist assistant says, out of curiosity, how much of the $6,600 of the buyer money did the charity receive? And Doki says, all of it. It goes directly to the charity and I don't receive any of the money as it transfers directly to the organization. The assistant says, sorry if it was an odd question, just making sure I'm following correctly. And Doki says, since it's done via Tiltify. Kat says in her document, Doki feels uncomfortable that the charity received less than what the item is going to be. This is confusing as the auction was hosted on Tiltify, a platform where donors will donate money directly to Tiltify and they will hold the money for 14 days before releasing it to the chosen charity. All of the money raised has already been transferred to the selected charity. Alternatively, Doki could be suggesting that they're uncomfortable with the buyer having paid lower than the face value of the PC build, with them donating 6.6k and the build valued at around 11k, making it a 5k difference. Yeah, I don't really think it's confusing. I think she's just uncomfortable that in doing this, she's trying to price match the charity and she's having to pay more than what the charity actually received for an item that was part of the auction. Just bear in mind, that's essentially what Doki was doing, right? Like, the charity received $250,000. She was price matching almost the entire thing by giving the money to artist instead from her own bank account. Now, of course, the majority of items weren't like this one, where she had to actually pay the bidded amount. So in total, she probably paid way less than 250k, but it's still a pretty big amount of money. Doki then says, no, I understand regarding that, the 5k is just after your amount was deducted. All $250,000 that was raised went directly to the org via Tiltify, and I touched none of the money, and I spent my own personal money on all the items that were sent to the winners. I just personally feel that the charity shouldn't receive significantly less than what the auction item cost, and that's why I hope we can find a middle ground. If anything, maybe we can have a portion of that money donated directly to the charity and not just deducted from the costs. The artist says it's not just deducted from the total cost you pay, and Doki says even then, the charity still received significantly less from the auction item and cost, and that's what made me uncomfortable with it being a $15,000 PC. Kat then says, Doki then suggests that a portion of the money, likely referring to the cost of the build, be donated to the charity. This feels unfair. While the sentiment of wanting charity to receive a fair amount is noble and the suggestion that a compromise, it's not Doki's money to give. This will be implying that the artist should undercharge themselves even more just to accommodate the miscommunicated budget. Management 3 begins pushing back on the quotes. Manager 3 tags the artist and the artist assistant and says, we have received a few different quotes by now and all quotes have big differences in pricings and keep going up. When we started, you asked for our budget and we said around 7,000 USD, and now we're getting a quote for 15,000 USD excluding shipping and taxes. Could you show me where you and old management agreed on the designer standard fee and what has been delivered on that? Where does this number come from? Perhaps it's just me being lost, but usually quotes are provided. You agree on a quote and things get made and paid in set agreed time based on the quote. Am I missing something? Kat says, management and the artist go back and forth on the quotes. The reason for the quotes changing is due to the artist feeling very pressured by management, both previous and current, to lower their prices to accommodate their budget that wasn't fully communicated. Management then tries to alleviate blame from themselves, and the artist assistant steps up. Management 3 then says, there has been multiple things gone wrong, not only mismanagement on our end, just to be clear. So yeah, I think if you've been watching this video so far, you can see how many different quotes were given, with Doki initially saying, I'm comfortable paying 7,400 USD, and giving the artist multiple occasions, ever since management 2, to leave if they feel uncomfortable. And yet now we find ourselves at 15,000 USD, with the artist claiming that they're going to give a discount to charity over the work they've already done. And we haven't even talked about work done yet. We're assuming that work hasn't even started. So Manager 3 points out, look, things have been going wrong. There has been mismanagement on our side, but there's other things happening too on your end regarding the quotes. I think that's a fair way to look at all this, right? But here's what Kat had to say instead.
Steps up. So management 3 says there's been multiple things gone wrong, not only mismanagement on our end, just to be clear. This is again weird. Just own that you fucked up. Trying to like point fingers at the artist for having a medical issue, which caused them to not be able to respond. Sorry, you have health issues. Your fault. Suck it up. Like, what? And regardless, the artist apologized, right?
Look, man, I might be delusional, but I don't remember seeing anything that points towards saying, oh yeah, sorry artist, sorry you got sick, buddy, get out of here. The sickness has not been mentioned since the beginning of the group chat. This is not the problem at all here. I have no idea how she concluded this at all, like genuinely, I can't even explain it. But anyway, let's continue in the document. The artist's assistant replies to Manager 3 and says, I'm sorry, this has not been sitting well with me today and I have to speak up. I feel this is a horrible pointed remark to make Manager 3 and is wildly inappropriate and unprofessional. Doki and artist have stepped up to own and apologize multiple times for missteps on both sides, and these things have been heard, understood, and sympathized with in order to draw a line under it, and to see if there is a solution to be made with the regrettable circumstances we now have. Giving explanations as to why certain things happened the way they did does not equate to making excuses for it or trying to absolve blame. I think that's simple enough to understand. I really feel like the negotiations that Doki and artist were engaging in have been really undercut now, and we've reached a point where all discussions should be left to them with very minimal interruptions. Doki, I'm sorry if my short question about the charity money was rude and out of hand. I was curious if the auction was done as all proceeds get donated or if it was 100% of the profits, since that would have made a huge difference in how much money you'd be shortfalling for this item. I should have elaborated. Perhaps attention can return to negotiations if either feel there are further points of clarity needed. Now look, so far you might have your opinion on this. You've seen what I think, you've seen what Kat thinks. We both have very differing opinions. I think everyone watching this right now would understand everyone is in the wrong here. This really is like trying to come up with the worst team imaginable to just get one PC built already, whether it be from management or the builders themselves. But this right here is about to be the turning point. This whole fiasco has been like one big game of Jenga. It's a game where you have a tower made out of different blocks, and you and your friends have to take out a block one at a time, hoping that you don't collapse the entire tower. Whoever collapses the tower loses. Throughout this whole thing, the artist, Doki, management, whatever else has been withdrawing blocks, and this is the moment in which the artist decides to withdraw the riskiest block and make the entire tower collapse on their face. On the 30th of January 2025, the artist decides to send this message in the group chat saying, "Good morning, everyone." This isn't a message I'd like to be sending, but at this point, I feel like I have no choice. After all this hard work without payment, I feel my efforts and work have been consistently undervalued, and I'm formally requesting to be paid for the work I have already completed. I do not feel comfortable proceeding with this build further until I am, at minimum, compensated for the time and effort I've already put into this project. Please find attached below the estimated invoice for my services if you wish to proceed with the build. The estimated total required for this project will be £8,622. The amount required prior to complete this work totals £3,840, taking £3,840 off of the invoice attached. So again, they're claiming that the work they've already done that they've never mentioned before is worth £3,840, and that they're taking it off the invoice for charity purposes. They then continue saying, to break down these costs for you, the build estimate itself totals £3,102, comprised of the following. If you would prefer to cancel this collaboration and proceed to work on this build with another PC builder, a flat fee licensing agreement will be required. The cost will come to 25% of the invoice total before any deductions at £3,040. This is to protect my original concept and ensure I am compensated fairly as the copyright owner, as I am sure you can understand much time and effort has been put into creating this design. Just bear in mind, the design they're talking about is the sketch they had shown Manager 1, okay? Let's continue. Alternatively, if you prefer to cancel entirely, the amount payable will be £3,840 for services already rendered and $6,600 refunded to the buyer. Again, this isn't censored. I'm gonna have to do that myself. Anyway, artist continues, again, this is not a message I want to send, but I truly feel like I have exhausted all other options. I do not feel like I have been listened to or communicated with in a way I expected from a major project such as this. I am happy to discuss this further and clarify any items. However, I believe I should be paid for the work I have currently completed for free. I cannot continue further until the contract is signed and returned and the services rendered so far are paid in full. Additionally, I want to clarify something regarding the financial aspect of this auction. While I understand that this was a charity project, I recently looked into the tax implications of charitable donations in Canada. Typically, Canada offers tax relief on charitable donations. However, since the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation is a US nonprofit, it only qualifies for tax deductions if the donor has US income. If a significant portion of your Twitch revenue, sponsorships, or other earnings are from US sources, this means you may already be recouping some or all of the donation costs through tax relief. Canadian tax law allows donations to US charities to be deducted up to the amount of US sourced income earned in that tax year, which means the financial burden of fulfilling this project may not be as high as it seems. Given this, I hope financial constraints are not the reason for further delays in settling this matter fairly. At this stage, this is no longer a charity discussion, it is about ensuring that the work I have completed is fairly compensated and that the auction's obligations are honored at everyone. This is where, personally speaking for myself, the artist officially loses any sympathy or compassion I may have had for them. Doki then replies with, "Hello, I have not taken any tax deductibles from this charity as the money is not mine. I would like to clarify that. All the money is paid via my own personal bank account towards the artist, not related at any business. I am not making any profit through this or doing it for tax reasons, which is concerning that you think that. Please understand that my staff and I are trying to work with you. When you disappeared for 6 months due to medical reasons, your communication with us was lost and mixed up during our swap of management. I have never done any tax deductibles via charity events as all the donations are given directly via my fans, and I never felt right with using it as tax purposes as I've never done so ever in my life, and it really saddens me that it was assumed so. I feel like if that was the image you see of me, then I shall remove myself from this conversation, as it deeply hurts to know that you think of me that way. I really did want to fix this, as I took time out of my own vacation to assist in a matter that my staff told me not to get involved in. Since the communication has gone towards this, my staff would now negotiate with you regarding compensation, as I shall remove myself from the conversation. My staff and accountant can vouch that I have never used charity as a tax deductible, despite them thinking I'm an idiot for doing so, but charity is what I fully believe in." You know, this to me is actually a topic that really hits home. I'll probably sound biased. So before I start talking, let's see what Kat has to say.
Any profit through this or doing it for tax reasons, which is concerning you think that. By the way, I want to add, Doki I think reads this as a negative, as like something like accusatory. I think Doki thinks it's like a slight on her as a person, like a personal attack. Oh, you think I'm gonna like profit from this or whatever. No. I mean, I think the artist is trying to do is just reassure you that maybe you're stressed about it costing a lot, and that it just seems like the artist is trying to reassure you, hey, it's not gonna be as much as you think because there's gonna be a write-off about it. So
no comment, really, just no comment on this. There are a million ways you can reassure Dokibird in this situation. What the artist did was anything but that. Throughout the video, Kat has accused Doki of guilt tripping, saying, "Oh, do this for charity, otherwise you're a bad person," when in fact she didn't say that. What the artist said was guilt tripping though. Like, "Oh, you seem to be making a lot of money from this charity. I hope that you're not able to pay me due to financial reasons, because it seems like you're making a lot of money on this. You're making a killing on this. Excuse me? Do you also want access to my bank account? Do you want to see how much I make monthly from Twitch?" So weird to me. But I truly wish this was everything that Kat had said on this topic. I just wish she kept her mouth shut, because she makes herself look like a total clown.
as an aside, it's very noble to not want to profit off of charity work in any way. I use the term profit loosely, including tax deductions. While I do see the morality in that decision, charity tax deductions exist to incentivize people to donate, as well as providing a legal loophole for tax evasion, which is a whole separate convo. And in my personal opinion, it is perfectly fine to receive deductions as such. In fact, I'd even argue that receiving tax deductions from your charity auctions should be encouraged, as that extra money saved will allow creators like Doki to continue hosting charity events, as well as have an emergency fund of saved earnings in case a financial discrepancy situation like this arises. That's the thing. I totally get your moral compass. I get your moral high ground of like charity and all this. Like, it seems like Doki really loves charity. I love that for you. Again, like I said prior, we need more people advocating for charities and donating to charities and hosting events, especially people with platforms. We need that. Your moral high ground of like not wanting to take a tax break is just hurting yourself. No.
Your moral high ground. Oh my God, I'm so close to punching my monitor. This is ridiculous. Look, when it comes to charity, my parents raised me in a very specific way. Your intent, your reason for giving to charity matters as much, if not more, than how much money you're giving. If I give $100 to a homeless guy, that's wonderful. If I go on stream or on a YouTube video and tell you guys, hey guys, yesterday I just gave $100 to a homeless guy. That just went from a charitable event to a marketing expense. To me, charity is the act of being selfless. If I were to give $1 million to a charity tomorrow, I would do it anonymously and I wouldn't tell a single soul. That's how I believe charity should be done, and I sure as hell am not going to do any tax deductibles on it either, because I feel that it morally messes with my intentions. I don't want to have to think about that. Do I think tax deductions are bad on charity? Of course not. I encourage them, because at the end of the day, it forces the ultra wealthy to donate their money to people in need. They do it to save money. Their intent is probably not amazing, but whatever. The money is getting to people in need. That's wonderful. Otherwise, they would never donate their money. At least most wouldn't. But just like how someone would choose to get a tattoo because it's their body and their choice, when it comes to charity, this should also be a personal choice as well. It's not a moral high ground to want to do charity for the sake of charity and not to take advantage of tax deductions. Look, I don't know Doki personally, okay? I barely watch her content, save for a few clips here and there. But the fact that she doesn't take advantage of tax deductions because it doesn't align with her definition of charity, even though her accountant and team is telling her she's an idiot, makes me respect her immensely. People like Doki are very hard to find these days. And this right here, after an hour and 22 minutes into the video, I can very confidently say that Kat wasn't just biased towards the artist against Doki, but this was close to being a hit piece. In what world can you sit here and call what she's doing the moral high ground? She was accused of using taxes to her benefit, as if she was hiding a pile of money that she didn't want to share with the PC builder, and yet, instead of criticizing the artist, saying, okay, you know what, in this case they screwed up, let's move on, you chose to somehow still turn this towards Doki. Oh, and I'm sure this comes as a shock, but even in the next 20 minutes, Kat doesn't criticize the artist once. In fact, the entire video, the artist has been nothing but perfect. I think you're starting to understand now why there's 14,000 dislikes. But of course, it's not over yet, there's more. Manager 3 then takes the reins and says, I have removed, I guess the buyer and Doki from the conversation. Please inform me, what services were rendered for the £3,400 quote? And what was the formal agreement? We will not be planning on using the design for the winner's PC, so I would like to know what this entails, as it's almost the same price as the auction itself for a non-delivered item and mock-up/quote. Dokibird is not involved and does not have input in further discussions, as the staff will now be taking over this matter. But there has been zero communication during the project, no quotes, no asking for feedback or approval. We'd be willing to discuss some sort of payment, but nothing has been shown or delivered from our point of view at the moment. And pricings seem to go up every time we are talking, so please provide me with sufficient evidence of work being finished on your end within the next few hours or so. Because at the moment I have zero to go on but your word that things have been completed. This is usually not how to do business. Complete things without a quote asking a pretty high amount, more than the charity auction fair market value, and then asking for the work that hasn't been communicated on. Then implying we are unprofessional and that the streamer might be pocketing cash, whilst the bidder, her fan, not yours, is still in the conversation, and then asking to add him back into the conversation whilst we already decided not to continue from the provided quotes. Kat then says, a few points to add. In the industry, services are paid for regardless if they're used or not. Even if there's no intention to use the mock-up the artist made, they should still be paid for the design. Secondly, while this wasn't the intention behind Management 3's words, pricing not only includes parts, shipping, labor, but communication hours are also included in the hourly pricing, as communicating with the client is still labor. Third, mentioning the charity auction fair market value referring to the $3,500 is a moot point, as that number has long been debunked as arbitrary. Okay, so I think the manager does make some very good points here that make a lot of sense, but let's see what Kat says just for fun.
Referring to the 3,500 USD is a moot point, as the number has long been debunked as arbitrary. But I want to break this down into a couple more points here that to me rubs me the wrong way. Beyond Dokibird being now out of the conversation, because the whole issue was Doki had no line of sight into the communication and thus miscommunication happened. There have been zero communication during the project, no quotes, no asking for feedback or approval. How is that the artist's fault? The artist can't move forward because you guys are the roadblock. And this is straight BS, because there have been communication. There was feedback that was asked. Every single time the artist provided an Excel sheet, a quote, the artist was like, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you want to discuss this further, etc. What do you mean approval? There is no approval because you guys are the roadblock that haven't approved anything yet. This is why nothing has moved forward beyond this. So, debunked. Point number 2. We'd be willing to discuss payment, but nothing has been shown or delivered. You guys received a mock-up last year, because that's when this happened. This all fell apart. You guys received a mock-up. Has the artist not been talking to you this entire time, providing Excel sheets, providing part listing, providing estimates of costs, whatever, discussing back and forth? You are literally in this group chat with eyeballs. Like, how did you not see this? 3, pricing seems to go up every time we're talking. Yeah. 1, the labor cost is going up because the artists felt guilt-tripped into lowering their prices to minimum wage rates, which, let me remind you, paying minimum wage for the labor cost of building a custom PC, an artisan task that requires an extreme high level of skill from the person who is building it, and you're going to pay minimum wage for that expertise, that is unheard of in the industry. Unheard of. But regardless, the artists felt pressure to lower their prices, and then they felt like, wait a sec, I'm scamming myself. Let me raise my prices to regular prices. Now you're freaking out because the prices are actually fair. 1. 2, the other part is the artist has to block out time. Like, if another project comes up, I don't know if it did happen, right? But the artist is kind of like in this weird limbo with you guys. So the artist is expecting to be working with the next 6 to 12 weeks. And if a project comes in, they likely might not be able to take it because they're expecting this project to start and for them to finish it. And then this is not how to do business, complete with things about a quote, not them gaslighting the artist about how this is not how to do business, when again, manager 1 was the one that made the Tiltify, grabbing a random PC part picker list from the artist, using that number with the wrong currency as the estimate price for the build without even getting the approval of the artist to use this number. And then they're the ones not giving the price to the artist. Over and over again, the artist and buyer kept asking for a budget over and over and over again. And you guys are the ones that are not giving the budget until way later, which is why things have been so slow. And then implying we're unprofessional streamer might be pocketing cash. No one said that. The artist never said, Doki is pocketing money. The artist said, oh, if you're worried about finances, you can get a tax deduction on this. So the finances is going to be less of a stress for you. Huh? And by the way, again, tax deductions does not mean you're pocketing cash. I'm gonna tell you right now, I take every tax deduction I can, okay? As an American, tax evasion is illegal, but
So again, fully siding with the artist cannot do anything bad on this planet. They're an angel. The fact that the artist disappeared for months, didn't ask for any feedback, any approval, didn't show any work that was being done, that's the management's fault, of course. It's not both of their faults, just management. The fact that the payment has 160 hours of labor cost, with the artist claiming that £4,000 is being discounted for charity because of work they've already done and never shown, is also the management's fault. Saying this is usually not how to do business is gaslighting apparently, because it's totally normal to claim to have done work on something without having signed any sort of contracts beforehand. And I mean, did she double down or triple down at this point? I've lost count as to how the artist was not being unprofessional and was only trying to help Dokibird by saying, hey, you can get tax deductions by the way. No, yeah guys, take notes. If you're going to be a journalist one day, if you want to make YouTube videos about topics, this is how you should present them. In a very biased way, without ever hearing the other side of the story, while you fully side with the person who supplied you with the source. Those 14,000 dislikes? Just ignore them. At this point, Manager 3 was just done playing games. They look at this quote of £3,000+ for just a mock-up and they say, so far, my calculations say you spent 2 to 3 weeks full time to create this mock-up, and I think that's hard to believe considering Doki just debuted around that time, and mock-ups usually take 2 to 4 days to complete and aren't a full-time day 8-hour days. Side note, I don't see any hidden costs that might be attached, and I'm not an artist, hence me asking to clarify this a few times so I can double check this with legal and finance, as well as with other artists in a similar space on our end. We asked for multiple quotes. We are also not the same company as the previous C-tweet. Dokibird Production and Stakeholders was its own company and wasn't owned by Dokibird. The team that worked there was fired for reasons as she got taken advantage of, hence she started her own new company. I understand you are not responsible or involved, but I'm trying to inform you since it's relevant information in a business sense. We are a totally different legal entity from the old company. The old company had no official agreements with you, and the new company is looking into this and also have no agreements with you. Now I'm still talking here since I do think some sort of resolution should happen even if we're not legally obliged and our conversations haven't been the best. But I can't help but get the feeling that both sides feel taken advantage of. Correct me if I'm wrong. We understand that the charity is Doki's thing and might not be your thing, and you wish to get paid for services provided, even if there was no agreement, quote, or official signed stuff. But within all reason, the old company had tried to connect multiple times and failed early on for reasons provided out of their control. At that point, things had been put on a halt, not because of Dokibird Production. I saw you take very little accountability on that part when it comes to charging your provided services. With this I mean if any customer, which we aren't since there isn't an agreement, waits this long, it is perfectly normal to not be happy with the services and talk about a solution. Further, it took the new company to get back back in touch with you when things did not go the correct way more than the fair market value has been asked as services for a mock-up. What would have happened if we did not get in touch? You can sense we feel taken advantage of for these and some other reasons. So of course, things are not as black and white as Cat is making it out to be. From summer 2024 to the beginning of 2025, there was zero communication with the artist. Zero. Of course, this was partly management's fault, but it almost seemed like the artist was completely fine, never receiving another email. The management still reached out because they wanted to know, hey, like, what's going on? You haven't communicated for months. Like, they wanted to know, was the work done? Was it being worked on? And it was only then that the artist was like, okay, even if you want to cancel, I want money. It's like, that. What? A few weeks ago, you hadn't talked for 6 months. The artist then proceeds to respond, saying, my services include, but are not limited to, the mock-up design that was created on a rush turnaround. I've provided a breakdown of the additional labor and administrative work in the spreadsheet, being as transparent as possible about my rates and costs. The proposals, updated hardware list, cost breakdown calculations, project planning/coordination, and other documents are part of the services you requested last month. You are correct that there are no hidden costs involved. To build trust, I've also offered to share previous invoices from similar projects to demonstrate that my rates are consistent and aligned with industry norms. I'm not a large company, but rather an academically recognized, published small artist specializing in unique boutique PC builds. My charges reflect the scope, complexity, and quality of the work involved. If this weren't the case, the auction winner would not have bid on the item. Additionally, I've consulted a charity manager who works with Tiltify to better understand the situation. From my understanding, the contract between the auction winner and Doki states that the winner is to receive a bespoke piece created by me. As per industry standards, this item should be fulfilled by the artist specified in the auction terms unless otherwise stated. While I understand shopping around for quotes, Doki's obligation under the contract is to provide an item created by me, as advertised to the customer. The charity in question had no formal relationship with me as the creator. This was an in-aid of fundraiser, meaning the funds raised were donated to the charity, but the charity itself had no involvement in managing or fulfilling the auction. Therefore, there should be no discussion of further donations or garnishing my pay, as this falls entirely outside the scope of the charity's involvement. Regarding the separation between Dokibird production and your current entity, while I acknowledge the distinction, the work was initiated under the previous company, and continuity of responsibility is implied through our ongoing discussions and your acknowledgement of the project. We've already addressed the breaches and missteps by both sides regarding my agreement with the previous entity. Despite these challenges, I've remained committed to resolving the matter promptly and fairly to ensure the auction winner receives the item they deserve. I'm still open to resolving this amicably and working with you on a fair solution. However, the amount due reflects the work completed in good faith and aligns with the rate I've charged for similar projects. I've thoroughly considered the situation at hand, and unfortunately have to notify you that my final quote is the previously stated £8,622. I understand why this is complicated for you all due to managerial changes and the amount of time that's passed. I apologize for wavering on this decision, which may have contributed to miscommunication on the topic. The bottom line here is that I'm not going to accept any less than my industry standard rate, and I'm not interested in undercutting other independent artists in the industry. I understand if you'd like to pursue this commission at a different quoted rate, but my compensation is non-negotiable. I'm unfortunately not interested in any further drawn-out dialogue, and therefore will not be responding to anything short of agreeing to an offer. Thank you, and again, my apologies for any confusion in our time reaching this result. The next day, Manager 3 says, we wish to continue conversations, but without concrete evidence as requested 3 to 4 times before, I cannot go back to the team and even start the further conversation of the possible compensation. We requested several things and these items have yet to be provided to us. If these items are provided, we might be able to assist you. The team also asked why you did not re-establish communication after losing contact upon your own return, and if you did, why was everything put on a halt? If you wish to stop communication on your end, then I cannot further help look for a possible solution between us. If you wish to pursue any legal matters, then please contact business@dokibirdproduction.com and hopefully you can find a resolution there with Dokibird Production. Please be advised that Dokibird doesn't work underneath them anymore, but they are still fulfilling previous contractual agreements. Kat says, it seemed that the final conclusion moving forward was that Doki's management was going to look for another builder to complete the PC build. Having not compensated the original artist in the process, they shopped around, potentially going through a PC company before settling on a buyer. So then the next screenshots are actually DMs between the buyer, the one who won the bid of the auction, and the artist. They had added each other on Discord, and the buyer kept the artist updated as to how the PC was being built. On the 7th of May, so more than a year since the auction had concluded, the buyer told the artist, so Doki ordered stuff from Amazon and didn't realize it got cancelled because Amazon thought like it was fraud because it was shipped to the builder in the USA while she lives in Canada. And the builder didn't even know it was supposed to be direct shipped to them, and apparently him pinging Rep twice still didn't get an answer. The artist says, what? This is such a colossal train wreck, I'm impressed. To which the buyer says, it's a stupid game of telephone. Me, Doki, Rep, Builder. At least now it's me, Doki, Doki to Rep, and Rep to Builder. The artist says, I feel so bad for you and the builder. The buyer then says, I forgot when you said it, but you were right. They did shop around for the cheapest they could get, aka free. To which the artist says, what do you mean free? The buyer then copy-pastes a message apparently from that new builder that says, "I'm sorry if they told you a certain date, but I clearly told them I can't give a date if I don't have the rest of the parts. I can't control anything out of my control. I am at their mercy since they handled ordering and logistics. I'm just a builder, a free builder at that." The document then ends with a conclusion written by Kat that says, "This seems to be a situation that completely got out of hand due to the faulty charity auction setup from the first management, along miscommunication from constant changing management and mismanaged expectations of how this would go down. It also does appear that there's misaligned expectations, with the artist, who is very familiar with working with industry on PC builds, entering into this relationship thinking it would be a casual relationship, and Doki's management, and potentially Doki by extension, thinking this was a professional relationship. A fair amount of miscommunication stemmed from the original $3,500 quote pulled by Management 1 from a previous build of the artist, which used the wrong currency, only included PC parts, and didn't account for the fact that build pricing isn't interchangeable one-to-one. There also was no mention of Doki wanting a duplicate of each item. This becomes irrelevant later as Doki ended up getting a custom PC through other means, and this serves as another point of miscommunication. Due to management changing midway, there was also a misunderstanding between the artist and Management 2 as to whether the build was even continuing at all. Management 1 also made it extremely clear to the artist that Doki would be completely paying for the build, but future management would not have the same understanding. And finally, there was a misunderstanding about budget and who was paying for what, with the buyer willing to cover the difference of upgrading the expected PC parts to the top of the line items they wanted and pricing of the artist's hourly rate, with expectations of the artist not charging for their labor at all, to minimum wage to the artist's standard rate in 2024 of £32 per hour. It really seems like a colossal series of missteps, with Doki and management not wanting to step up as the bigger person to remedy the issue. To this day, the artist has not been compensated for their labor, nor has the bidder received the PC, and it appears there's a new builder who's responsible for doing the build for free. And there we are, made it to the end of the document. Congratulations. I can feel my throat begging for mercy, but here's the thing, we're not done with Kat. Here's what she said at the end of her video.
This is going to sound so privileged, but Doki is a big creator. Is money this big of an issue? As in the moral high ground of wanting to make sure the price of the PC matches what the charity got, then why couldn't you donate the difference to charity and pay for the PC? And now it's all done. Just pay out of pocket, take the loss and call it a day. Or do a payment plan or something. Like, I don't know. To me, it
Bro, just pay out of pocket. Just, hey, listen, do a payment plan. That's not the issue here. Also, if you weren't convinced that she was very heavily biased towards the artist, then look at this little clip from her stream reading the whole thing.
The artist, by the way, oh my god. Patience of a saint. They remain professional up until this day. It is crazy.
Professional? In what way? Just because you speak good English when you type doesn't mean you're professional. I'm sorry, but when I receive 2 quotes from a vendor, I lean towards the second quote, and then a day after they say, oh, by the way, the second quote, forget about it. Like, that is not professional at all. Not to mention disappearing for months. This was reporting done with a very clear narrative. And even though she's been doing this kind of content for a long time now, she made a rookie mistake. And if you watched any of my videos, you'd understand what it is. And that's not waiting to hear the other side of the story. As far as we know, she never even attempted to contact Dokibird. She had the artist reach out to her with this exclusive piece of news that no one else has. She got excited. And after the artist explained the situation to her, she had already made up her mind about who's right and who's wrong before even typing the first word in that document. She bit way more than she could chew, and she made herself out to be a clown. But even so, within the first few hours of the video being uploaded, all the top comments were siding against Doki. Like this comment right here saying, as someone who works in a multi-million-dollar company, you know what we do when something is our fault? We eat the cost. You know what we do when we can't prove it isn't our fault when the client says it is? We eat the cost. The insane reputation loss from this situation is way worse than the price of the PC. I'd argue Doki's reputation would have gone up if she had just paid the artist fairly and then apologized to them and the buyer sincerely. Insane fumble. Those kinds of comments were everywhere. And the video, I know it's hard to believe, had a positive like to dislike ratio. This narrative against Doki was gaining traction, and she was alerted of this. And even though she's one of the most allergic VTubers to drama, she still felt the need to address this. And this is when the tides would completely shift against both the artist and Kat. On May 14th, 2025, Doki would all of a sudden tweet this out, saying, full statement on the PC charity auction and recent allegations, attaching a Google Doc. The document starts off with full statement on the charity auction and recent allegations. To everyone following the situation regarding the charity auction, I want to address the claims that have been circulating, particularly in a recent video. This has been an incredibly difficult experience, but I believe the full story deserves to be heard. First and foremost, I accept that the handling of this auction item was far from ideal. I want to sincerely apologize to those impacted, especially the winner, for the delays and confusion. And I tremendously appreciate the patience and support the winner has shown me. I take responsibility for how things unfolded, but I also need to be transparent about the challenges that were taking place behind the scenes, many of which have not been shared publicly until now. I feel that it's time that I share this with everyone as I have come to terms with what has happened in the summer. At the time this auction was concluding, I was in the middle of a serious and distressing transition. My previous management team had taken full control of my brand, and I was actively working with lawyers and police to reclaim ownership of Dokibird. During this time, I was also forced to move out of my home under police supervision, a situation so severe it required formal reports and the help of personal friends and staff. It was during this incredibly turbulent time that the charity item fell into the hands of my team while I was trying to survive and restart my life from the ground up. I won't go into too much detail, but this screenshot is a snapshot of how bad it was. Here we can see messages of Doki with someone else who's blurred out from the summer of 2024, with Doki saying, "She just left. I only have a small window of time to leave the apartment before she comes back. Are the police coming because I won't be home when they do?" The person says, "Exit the apartment. They are almost there." Doki says, "I'm packing up right now to leave." The person then says, "Grab a charger. Officer's calling you. Please let me know if everything is okay." She then continues in the document saying, "So to be fair, my team and I were under a lot of pressure. We still came out of this and had to immediately start to pick up the pieces of the business, and during this time, there was no attempt from the other side to follow up or reach out after the initial silence. My staff wasn't sure how to proceed, and I truthfully was overwhelmed and unable to manage the situation while trying to re-establish basic stability in my personal and professional life." Here we can see someone messaging Doki on August 2024 saying, "Hey Doki, there's a metric ton of work that's still unfinished/unaddressed, and as much as I'd like to give the room to let you settle in the move, shit needs to get done. We can't keep pushing things back. It's already unprofessional that things have been delayed this long. The charity auction still has multiple items that need addressing, the most important being the custom PC, which has still made no progress. And I've received another inquiry as to where the plan for it is. Bottom line is, there needs to be a new builder arranged, or at least a budget, 6,600 USD, allocated to either build the thing or reimburse the bidder in full." Doki then continues, "Eventually, I stepped back in personally to handle the PC build when it became clear it was dragging on too long. I contacted the builder myself and was informed of a prior medical emergency. Still, no follow-up ever came from them afterward, despite months passing, and I had to initiate contact again." As for the auction process itself, the starting bid was always intended to reflect the cost of the item. This was standard across all auction pieces, and many artists we worked with can confirm this. I was confused when the PC build kept increasing in quoted price, from $6,000 to $8,000 to $12,000, then $14,000 with no consistent rationale. I even offered to pay more than the original bid due to the delays, but the shifting figures and eventual threat of daily penalties for missing an arbitrary deadline left me overwhelmed and unsure if I could continue the partnership. The builder provided irrational hours in the time log, asking for obscene amounts and services we never agreed on. Eventually, I was told I'd owe a $4,000 cancellation fee, yet I had not agreed to any finalized scope or cost. There was no contract signed between me, Dokibird, and them directly. Then she says, here's one of the quotes they sent us, in which we can see the total cost is $15,000, in other words, 12,062 pounds, with the labor costing $6,351 and the pre-project labor estimate costing $4,763. So as we saw, the artist was trying to charge almost $5,000 for communication and doing a mock-up in 2 days, when they had disappeared for months prior. Doki then continues, and the timesheet they claimed to have accumulated already for 120 hours, which my staff and I found untruthful. Especially when I was not shown any proof of labor, we requested if there was a way to provide us proof, which was then also ignored. So as you can see, they're charging Doki £3,840 for 120 hours of work done before they had reinitiated contact in 2025. She then continues, throughout this, I asked for one thing multiple times, a time-lapse video of the PC build that was drafted, which the builder themselves had originally said existed. They told us it existed, and I asked if I could see it, but I was then ignored. I even stated in writing that it would pay the full amount, no questions asked. Despite multiple requests by me and my staff via email, it was never delivered. At this point, the builder's behavior was showing bad faith to me, the buyer. This is a DM from Doki on February 12, 2025, saying, we have requested these items multiple times in various emails and DMs, and you have stated that you would provide them, but we still have yet to receive the items. We said that we are willing to provide compensation if these items were provided, so we do not understand why this has been ignored multiple times. And of course, this was not shown in Kat's document. The artist had not sent this part of the conversation. This is of course me assuming that these were DMs with the artist. There's a chance that they're not. But one thing I'm 100% sure of is the next image that Doki posts in her document, which is the fact that on February 13th, 2025, Dokibird's team emailed the artist saying, we have never agreed or communicated on any pricing of anything for you to make a quote for us, and that this would be a chargeable service. No other company does this, and you did not make it clear to us you are charging us for this as a service in any way, shape, or form when we reached out to you in 2025. You did not inform us that every time we interact, it would be charged. You claimed to have worked in the past before 2025 with Dokibird Productions Inc. on things regarding a mock-up created about a year ago, and that you wish to get paid for those services provided, and that item isn't on your timesheet and wasn't charged. This raises even more questions on our end because you stated that the mock-up was the work that was being charged for until you added the other items later on with no tangible proof, wrapped up as services that weren't communicated that this would cost money or further discussed, signed, or approved on. You have also disappeared for 6 months without notifying us in the beginning until 2 different managements gave up talks with you. We also still have yet to receive the time-lapse video which we requested multiple times and you have stated you would provide to us. If you do not have the time-lapse video, then please tell us the truth that you do not have the video. So this right here is proof. This email was sent to the artist, and the artist was billing for communication only, not even showing the mock-up, but the team wasn't even notified that the artist was going to charge for communication. This is usually something you do, telling the other side, hey, by the way, like, I'm going to charge you now.
The artist, by the way, oh my god. Patience of a saint! They remain professional up until this day. It is crazy.
Doki then continues. Then came 2 incredibly personal accusations that crossed the line for me, that I was pocketing charity money and that I did this for a tax write-off. These were not only false, but deeply hurtful. All money from the bids went directly to the charity through Tiltify. I paid artists out of pocket, including shipping and production costs, and in some cases even covered or increased their rates myself. To be accused of using this for personal gain was crushing, especially as someone who has consistently tried to share what I have with others. Due to how emotionally charged the situation became, I chose to step away and let my team manage it more professionally. I was on a rare, long-awaited vacation at the time, while also suffering from severe food poisoning and still trying to resolve the situation behind the scenes. This was well documented on stream and on social media. Anyone who knows me knows I rarely take time off. This was a trip to Japan for my first LAN Apex event, which had been planned for months. Eventually, I worked with a new PC builder using my height case. I upgraded all the parts at my own expense and tried to spend nearly $10,000 to deliver what was promised. Unfortunately, Amazon canceled my parts order shortly before the winner's travel date, meaning we could no longer deliver the PC on time. At that point, the winner and I mutually agreed that I would send them $7,500 to build their own non-themed PC. We considered the matter resolved. This shows the order being placed on the 20th of April 2025, with Doki saying here are all the parts. Also, all the parts were 9,395 USD in the end, and then continues in the document saying 2 days later, the video was posted after the payment had already been made and the issue had been settled. The video description and pinned comment were edited after the fact to say I had paid the auction winner, but it falsely implied I only did so because of public pressure. That's simply not true. Here's an image of the transaction details of her sending 7,500 USD to the auction winner, and then she continues, I didn't screenshot anything from our conversations in the Discord group because I had hoped to resolve this privately without dragging it into the public eye. But in hindsight, that was naive. I've always tried to avoid public conflict, but now I'm being forced to defend myself from a one-sided narrative. The pain cuts deeper when I see people claiming I didn't want to pay because it was the most expensive item. That's not true. I've paid for other auction items valued even higher, and this was never about avoiding payment. It was about trying to navigate an increasingly confusing, emotionally fraught, and mismanaged situation in the middle of one of the hardest years of my life. For context, I've always tried to treat the artists I work with fairly. Sometimes I pay late because I'm overwhelmed or unwell, and as my community knows, I've faced numerous health and personal challenges lately, but I always pay. I've covered late fees, offered bonuses, and even donated to artists in need. To now be accused of being manipulative or exploitative after everything I've given financially and emotionally is devastating. I'm not perfect, I get emotional, I talk from the heart, not always from a business-only place, and yes, I should have kept some personal matters out of these conversations, that's on me, but I'm only one person trying to keep everything afloat. To be called a manipulator or gaslighter when all I've done is try to fix things, learn, and grow is deeply unfair. This entire experience has broken my heart. This statement was not something I ever wanted to write, but after being repeatedly asked to say something, and after having personal pain used for public drama, I felt exploited and I felt I had no choice. I hope this is the only time I'll have to speak on this. Moving forward, I will no longer be handling direct negotiations for my brand. I have learned that my emotional communication style makes me vulnerable to being misunderstood or misrepresented, and I don't want that to affect others. I hope people will take a moment to hear the full context, not just the most viral part of the story. Thank you to those who've shown patience, understanding, and support. Apologies for my break this week because I am tired. All I want to do is spend time with my closest and only family right now, as my dog had just got home from surgery and rehabilitation. I'm still learning, I'm still healing, and I'm still trying to do better every day. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why my videos take longer sometimes. I usually wait for the other side of the story. I wait for the other person to share their perspective because it can change everything, and here, in my opinion, it did. Did Dokibird make mistakes? Of course she did. Could she have handled it better? Absolutely. But this isn't the victim sob story that the artist was trying to sell to both Kat and everyone else. This is someone who's disingenuous, unprofessional, and I mean honestly a straight up scammer who thought that Dokibird was making money off of a charity tax write-off and wanted to drain as much money as they could from her bank account. And by the way, seeing that Doki had solved this with the buyer, we have to wonder, were the DMs that were leaked between the artist and the buyer consensual? Did the buyer even know that they were going to be a part of Kat's document? We don't know, and that's worrying by itself. When this document released, everything, and I mean everything, changed. When Kat's video was first uploaded, here's what the description said. Update. There finally has been a resolution to the situation and the buyer will be receiving a refund alongside an additional $1,000 for the troubles. Disclaimer. Please do not send hate to anyone mentioned in my videos. Everything that is said is alleged and there are always two sides to every story and the truth. This is so ironic coming from her. After the document came out, she edited the description and made it a pinned comment as well, saying, update. The buyer has been refunded the original amount plus an extra $1,000. However, the artist involved has not been compensated at all. Sad face. Edit. To clarify, since people are wondering why everyone from this document is redacted except Doki, I choose to redact names if I think significant harm could come their way, either due to one party having a large and opinionated fan base, one party having a substantially larger audience that could be mobilized for harm, and other reasons I deem fit. Doki isn't redacted because this entire situation involved her auction, and redacting her name will not give enough context for people to understand the situation. Also, redacting the name of the person who needs to be accountable makes no sense. Oh yeah, then why is the artist redacted, huh? I know most people who have this sentiment are just Dokibird fans confused why their Oshi is being criticized, but felt adding this clarification would help confused parties as to why so many names are redacted. Update 2. On the 14th of May 2025, Doki has put out a statement of her side. Feel free to read it here to come to your own conclusion. About the statement specifically, quoting Doki's document saying, the video description and pinned comment were edited after the fact to say I had paid the auction winner, but it falsely implied I only did so because of public pressure. That's simply not true, end quote. Please read the words written in both the video description and pinned comment and see where it says Doki paid because of public pressure. It does not, because that's not what was written. It was added after the video because the video was cut from a Twitch stream over a week ago and scheduled to go live at 10 a.m. And information about the refund was presented after the video was live. The VOD can be viewed here, linking the VOD that we already saw. You know, I find that hilarious. She recorded this a week ago, right? And still uploaded this 1 hour and 48-minute video, even though it contained outdated, irrelevant information now. Look, this happens to me too, okay? I'll work on a 1 hour video, and as I'm getting ready to export, someone comes out with a new, very important update. I go back and I update it, otherwise the video is useless. What's the point? This is her acknowledging the fact, right? That as the video was being uploaded, the buyer was refunded, and yet she still uploaded it, and her excuse is, oh yeah, it was recorded a week ago. I don't care. This is your job. How out of touch can you be? But I'm not the only one who felt this way. All of a sudden, the top comments went from criticizing Doki to criticizing Kat, and the dislike ratio became ridiculous. I mean, seriously, I can't remember the last time I've seen this many dislikes on a video. While this was all happening, people on Twitter were coming out to support Doki, with artists such as this one saying, I don't have all the context, so I won't weigh in too much here, but I've been working with Doki on tons of projects over the past 3.5 years, and it's been great. She's the only one whose projects I never turned down despite not doing comms anymore for years now, and there are sometimes delays in communications, but I've never been ghosted or had not been paid for my work ever. I can tell from every commission that she cares and wants what's best for her community. Another artist said, can confirm, Dokibird has never once failed to pay me fairly, and payment delays have never been longer than like a week, which is corroborating what she said in her document. Someone else pointed out, did people forget one of the reasons Doki even left Nijisanji was that they wouldn't cooperate with her, ensuring all artists they worked with were properly compensated? Which is what I mentioned at the beginning of the video. It just didn't make sense. Someone quote tweeted 2 screenshots from the document and said, these 2 screenshots are all you need to understand the core of what happened. PC Builder tried to scam money out of Doki, refused to provide proof of work that they claimed existed, Doki reimbursed the winner of that auction bidding, and the scammer failed to get their money, showing the artist's spreadsheet, and Doki saying that she just wanted to see the work and was willing to compensate. The reason why this is such a big deal is because it completely destroys the narrative that Kat was trying to push on everyone. A day later, Doki would tweet, thank you everyone for the outpouring support and love. I was honestly so scared and worried when I had to make a Google Doki. I'll be back in a few days to care for the doggo and not look at social media. I miss you all, Dragoons, and hope you can wait a little longer. So to say that this was starting to backfire on Kat was an understatement. People weren't just viewing this video as a misrepresentation of what happened. No, they saw this as a hit piece, as a deliberate attempt to make Dokibird look bad to get views on a drama video. And then, just as you thought that things couldn't get any worse, a major controversy from the past comes back to haunt Kat today. And this is all due to her saying something that she shouldn't have said in this Dokibird video. At around the 1 hour and 10-minute mark, as she was mentioning how Doki was uncomfortable with paying a substantially higher amount than what was raised for charity for this PC, she tries to use a situation she's been through to make herself look good and give an example as to what Doki could have done. Watch.
donating 6.6k USD and the build valued at around 11k USD, making it a 5k difference. Just suck it up, man. I'm gonna give a personal anecdote, okay? There was one time I filmed a video about a VTuber. The video was edited by my editor. It was on my YouTube channel as unlisted. Then the VTuber had made a post writing, "I feel really uncomfortable with people making videos about my situation." News YouTuber specifically, which includes me. And I saw that and I was like, oh shit, okay, not gonna post the video. I never told my editor to not post the video. I had the video unlisted. It was not scheduled. Then my editor, because I upload once a day, noticed that I did not have a video scheduled for the day. So my editor uploaded the video without me knowing. I was asleep because we're in different time zones. My editor's in Europe, I'm in the US. My editor uploaded the video. He didn't know that there was a tweet that the VTuber expressed they didn't want people to talk about it. The VTuber was upset because they were upset about the way it was titled, whatever. And then so the editor changed the title and the VTuber was even more upset. Also, for clarity, English is not my editor's first language, so it came off weird probably because it's not his first language. I woke up at like 4 p.m. because I wake up really late and I saw all of this going down. All of this was happening over the course of 6 hours and I had no idea because I was asleep. I've now talked to my editor. He will not upload videos. I will only be the one that uploads the videos. He will not post videos without me knowing. It's honest mistake, happens. You know, I saw something, I didn't communicate it to my editor. I was like, I'm not gonna post it. But regardless, it happened. The video was live now and the VTuber was upset. So I was like, oh shoot, this is really bad. I took the video down immediately and I sent the VTuber money as an apology for the screw up. I did not make the mistake because I was literally asleep. But regardless, the damage was done, it happened, and the editor is an extension of me because it was on my channel. So to fix it, I paid the VTuber. I am so sorry. I made like no money off the video because it wasn't live for very long, but I gave them like what, you know, I felt would be fair for like the compensation for it, etc. And we called it a day. Even if you didn't fuck up, if it's a fuck up of your team or an extension of you, it falls on you and you have to clean up the mess, okay? Did you poop there? No, but then now it's in your house, so you gotta clean it. Like, I'm the face of the brand, even though I didn't do it. The damage was done as a reflection of my brand. That's just what you gotta do. Like,
so this video is 1 hour, 48 minutes and 34 seconds, and just this segment that was a couple minutes long was probably the most damaging part of this entire catastrophe. Yes, I'm not exaggerating here. These 2 minutes ended up being a bigger reputational hit than this entire video. Here's why. Alicia is a VTuber who used to be an esports commentator. At some point, she unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer. She had told her loyal community and kept them updated, but would keep the videos and the titles vague. This video right here is a great example. It's titled My Health Update. That's usually how she would update her community on how she was doing. She didn't like to extensively talk about the fact that she had cancer. She didn't want this to be the label put on her forehead. So she made these health updates in a very low-key way so that the people who want to know, and she can move on with her life, still making content that's uplifting with things she wants to do. At some point, her channel got straight up hacked, okay? She has 2 channels, ALICIAXDEATH and ALICIAXDEATH, and they both got hacked by crypto scams. I've already made a video about a VTuber getting hacked the same exact way in which I explain specifically what happens, but in a nutshell, you click on a bad link, that link steals your cookies in your browser, and they can use those cookies to just be logged into your YouTube account. Now look, I'm gonna be the first to tell you, with Kat's upload schedule of 1 video per day, it gets very hard to find good topics to talk about. I mean, there's just simply not enough. This is coming from someone who's covered VTubers for a while now. I usually try to upload weekly, and I still have a hard time finding good topics to talk about sometimes. Her and a couple of other channels saw that Alicia got hacked, and they thought, great, I can make a video about that. Except, Kat came up with one of the worst titles I've ever seen in my life. VTuber with cancer got hacked. VTuber with cancer got hacked. Listen, man, clickbait is totally natural to find on YouTube. I do it, and I am not ashamed of it. The problem here is that if the only thing that's interesting about your video is the fact that a VTuber has cancer, then it probably isn't really a good video to make to begin with, okay? I can't even believe it's 21 minutes. What the hell did she even talk about? This had happened back on November 2nd, 2024. Alicia caught wind of this and tweeted, bro, what the fuck is this title? Clickbaiting my cancer is insane. Reacting to my update video is totally fine, but holy shit, the title. Ethics don't exist when there's ad revenue to be made, I guess. She then said, the title changed to VTuber in remission now. I still have cancer. My main mass is gone. Remission will be after my final 2 malignant spots are gone. Dang, can't we call me the funny VTuber or something? I don't even clickbait my cancer and I have it. I left a comment, this shit is so exhausting. There are comments in their section thinking I'm still hacked now, which I'm not. My cancer isn't a YouTube money glitch. Fuck off. In which she says, both of my channels are already back. I got them back last week. Also, what is your title? Clickbaiting my cancer is so disgusting. Finally, after more than 24 hours had passed, Alicia says she deleted the video. Thank you for your support, everyone. I'm glad that, she reached out and tried to mend things. She also paid me the ad revenue from the video as an apology. Stuff like this is really frustrating and upsetting when feeling like I'm being defined by my illness. I appreciate the support and empathy you all have shown me. Mentioning it in videos is fine, my cancer isn't a secret, but please, for future creators, don't use it as your title or thumbnail. Feels weird having to say this, but this is the second time this has happened in the past 2 days. I don't monetize my cancer, so please don't do it either. So yeah, this is wild, especially the fact that they changed the title to VTuber with remission. Like, bro, you can ask whoever you want. Mr. Beast, ChatGPT, whoever you want. VTuber with remission got hacked? What kind of title is that? Why would anyone click that? At that point, just unlist the video or something. It's such a weird hill to die on. Now, of course, Kat had mentioned that this wasn't her. She was sleeping. It was her editor who doesn't know how to speak the English language. She emphasized multiple times this was not her fault, and actually used this as an example as to what you should do when encountered with controversy. Here's the thing though, Alicia had made it very clear, she never wanted to be mentioned on Kat's channel again. And yet, during this whole fiasco against Dokibird, she chose to mention it at the worst possible time. This prompted Alicia to quote tweet Doki's statement on the PC charity auction and say, "They said how many hours? I built my first PC with a friend and it only took 4 to 5 hours because we were YouTubing shit, lol. Doki dealing with this sucks, but what sucks also? The person who made the video. Hey Kat, remember me? The person whose cancer you clickbaited for YouTube video and blamed anyone else you could for that happening. Your drama channel is shit and you take zero accountability. I let it slide and was nice because I was too emotionally exhausted from dealing with the aftermath of your video, but you know, personal beef. But at least you paid me back the ad revenue you made off of my cancer, so thanks for that, you dick." Now look, this might seem emotionally charged, unprofessional even, especially since Kat had gone out of her way to pay her compensation. Why bring up past controversies? Is Alicia fishing for attention? No, because up until this point, we had no idea just how badly she was affected from Kat's video. But before we get into that, remember that comment that was left on Kat's video? Someone saying, "As someone who works in a multi-million-dollar company, you know what we do when something is our fault? We eat the cost." Well, as you can see over here, there are 11 replies. One of them is from Kat, in which she said, "I cited the same thing from a personal experience in the video. There was a video I made about a VTuber with cancer, and then I saw the VTuber express they didn't want people talking about it. I wanted to respect that, but was being lazy and planned to delete the private video. It wasn't uploaded yet when I had time, since sometimes deleting a vid takes a while. My editor posted the video without me knowing. He noticed I hadn't scheduled out a daily video and thought that video was good to post. The VTuber was upset, and he changed the title to sound better. It actually sounded worse because English isn't his first language and made the VTuber even more upset. I don't blame him at all. He's human and makes mistakes like the rest of us. I was asleep the entire time and woke up at 4 p.m. to a shitstorm, and I was super confused as to what was happening. Even though the entire situation wasn't my fault, it was a reflection of the KatnChat brand, and I immediately took the video down and paid the VTuber compensation for their troubles for the video being up for 6 hours. As a brand, things may happen that isn't your fault. It feels unfair to take responsibility for something you didn't 100% cause, but that's how you can be the bigger person and right the wrongs for affected parties." So she hadn't just mentioned Alicia in her video, she had doubled down and mentioned her again, this time citing the fact that this is a VTuber with cancer, really confirming the fact that she's talking about Alicia. Alicia saw this, quote tweeted someone posting her comment and said, "Be the bigger person, you absolute fuckhead. You clickbaited my cancer, the internet called you out, so you changed the title to saying that I'm in remission," which caused people to think I beat it. Then after you got double backlash, you reached out to me blaming your editors. You took zero accountability and gave me the ad revenue to the video because you monetized my cancer. You are not a good person, stop acting like it. Even though the entire situation wasn't my fault is stupid. You directly say here, quote, "I wanted to respect that, but I was being lazy and planned to delete the video since it takes time," end quote. You can literally delete a video from your mobile device. Stop lying. It's not like I'm not a YouTuber. She then tags Kat's Twitter and says it's outrageous you knew and still let it go out. Alicia would then make a video titled "I'm So Done," in which she calls out Kat the way she really wanted to last year but couldn't because she was too emotionally exhausted. Why? Well, she details that. You see, Alicia from the beginning didn't want to be labeled as the cancer VTuber. She wanted people to recognize her for being more than that, for being funny, for the content she made, etc. This is why she kept everything low-key. When she would update her viewers on her cancer, she would just title the video "My Health Update." She would never clickbait it or make it seem like it was her entire personality. When Kat made the video, "VTuber with cancer gets hacked," this was actually the first time many of her fans were finding out that she had cancer to begin with. Then, not even a few hours later, when the title changed to "VTuber in remission gets hacked," many of those same people thought, hey, she's cured, I guess. That's awesome. Alicia even received messages from her friends congratulating her on finally beating the cancer when she wasn't even sure if she was out of the woodworks yet. Like, can we take a second here? Can we take a step back and just understand how terrible of a feeling that is? You just had a surgery taking out one of your 3 tumors. Apparently, it's the main one that was taken out. There's 2 more. We're not sure if they're harmful. They still could be. You're nervous and dreaming of the day the doctors tell you, hey, you are actually in remission, the cancer's gone. And yet now you have to painstakingly message every single person messaging you, congratulating you for beating the cancer, saying, no, actually, I still have cancer. And that's without talking about the people finding out she had cancer and then thinking she's in remission within the span of a few hours. If I was Alicia, I would have probably dedicated my entire life to making Kat miserable, okay? But she kept quiet about it since November 2024. And now, seeing that Kat was using her name to make herself look good, yeah, I totally understand why Alicia reacted the way she did. I think anyone would. Kat's next videos would be heavily dislike bombed, and there would be many comments highlighting how she clickbaited the fact that Alicia had cancer, right? And these would be heavily upvoted. Kat would start realizing this isn't something she can just wait out. This isn't something that will disappear. This was actually a very big hit to her reputation, 2 things at the same time wreaking havoc on everything she has built. So she made this statement on Twitter saying, addressing the cancer clickbait incident with Alicia. There was a situation where Alicia was hacked and lost access to their YouTube channel, and I had made a video about it titled something like VTuber with cancer was hacked. The VTuber had publicly expressed on their Twitter they did not want people to talk about their hacking situation, and I wanted to respect that and was going to delete the video. At this point, the video was not live, it was sitting as private on my channel. I should have deleted the video immediately to avoid miscommunication with my editor, and that's my fault. However, while I was asleep, my editor posted the video without me knowing. He does not have permission to post videos to my channel, and he had never posted a video prior to this, so I did not expect that he would do that. He then saw the backlash about the video and changed the title to something about remission. My editor's first language is in English, so he didn't realize that the words cancer and remission aren't interchangeable and mean 2 completely different things. He's human and makes mistakes like the rest of us. Please do not send hate to him if you know who he is. Regardless, the blame lies with me, as I should have immediately deleted the video off my channel to avoid the possible misinterpretation that the video was good to go live. The entire time I was asleep, and I woke up confused to what was happening. I misremembered. I thought I realized something happened at 4 p.m. PT when I woke up, but I realized I actually went live, and my editor told me after my stream something happened, making it around 10 p.m. PT. The moment I realized something was wrong, I deleted the video, privately apologized to the VTuber, and compensated the VTuber for potential damages that could have occurred for the 12 hours the video was up. You can see the timestamps and the attached photos of the post about the video on the 2nd of November 2024 at around 11 a.m. PT, and my message same day at around 11 p.m. PT. I didn't want to talk about this publicly because I deemed the situation resolved, and also didn't want to continue mentioning that VTuber, as they have already expressed multiple times they didn't want people to talk about their health situation. But I felt it needed to be brought up as there's a narrative going around that I exploited their health for views when I was asleep the entire time it was happening. So already there are some things that don't add up. She initially said that she was lazy for not deleting the video. There's no mention of that anymore. She also, in the comment and in the video, mentioned the video was up for 6 hours. Now she's saying it was up for 12 hours. And finally, she said she didn't want to talk about this publicly because she thought this was resolved. Well, she already did talk about it publicly. Once in the video and once in the comments trying to make herself look better. She of course got community noted and proceeded to show the DM conversation between her and Alicia, in which she used the same excuse that, oh, it wasn't me, it was my editor, I wanted to take down the video, blah blah blah, to which Alicia says, thanks for taking it down, it really sucks being referred to as the cancer VTuber, wishing your team well, yeah, today sucked a lot more because of that video, but what's done is done, thanks again for taking it down, to which Kat says, hey, I feel really bad about this, do you have a PayPal or something so I can send you something as an apology for everything? Alicia gives her PayPal, Kat sends her the money, around $150, and Alicia says, thank you, got it, have a great night too. Here's the problem though, Kat had posted another screenshot showing the PayPal receipt, showing the amount paid and who received it. Now, Alicia's face and full name are well known. As I said, she used to be an esports commentator. However, what's never been known publicly is her middle name. And that receipt showed her middle name. It didn't censor her name. There was an attempt by Kat to draw over it, but it was such a shitty job that you could see everything. After that receipt tweet was deleted, Alicia said, Kat has now deleted the tweet that doxed my full government name. After one day of it being up, when she made a Google Doc, she censored everyone's fully. When it came to mine, she didn't. I don't know why. To be clear, my first and last name are public due to me being a retired professional esports commentator, but my middle name has never been public. This was a lot to take in, and these past few days have been draining. I don't know how you could try to write a professional statement in response to me, but just dox me within it. But she clearly has fully covered others' names before, so why wasn't the same done for me? I've been spending time with my fiance and unplugging as much as I can. I will get back to normal video recording soon. Rejecting DMs of people sending me my own name has been kind of freaking me out a bit, but it's fine, nothing too crazy, I just feel super anxious. So Kat had somehow, in trying to clear her name, made things 1,000 times worse. Now literally doxing Alicia. Like, dude, can someone take her phone away? Seriously, like she shouldn't be allowed to tweet or do anything anymore for a while. This is insane. Before realizing that she was doxed, Alicia had quote tweeted Kat's response and said, "Hey there, idiot, it's me, the person you exploited. Don't worry, I showed all the screenshots in my video, it doesn't save your ass. You said in your own words I was too lazy to take down and that taking down videos take time. You are a liar. You can pretend and act like your editor is the problem, but you are. You are a terrible person who thinks posting about my cancer is fine. Who chose to bring me up again to defend yourself when slamming on Dokibird. You posted a video clickbaiting my cancer on your channel. You had changed the title to me being in remission. You bashed Doki for her blaming others. You are a hypocrite. Trying to call out someone else while you are the problem is just classic you though. Also, all screenshots, honey. I can provide them since they are in my response video. My screenshots also include the comment I made that you deleted, so cheers. You posted about my channel being hacked a week after I already got it back. You made the video after I already called out other channels for clickbaiting my cancer. You even stated you knew before the video uploaded that I don't want people calling me the cancer VTuber, yet you made the video. Fuck off. Also, of course you didn't want the situation to be public because you look like shit. LMAO, I chose not to say anything, but then you brought me up to seem like a good person when people got upset about you in relation to Dokibird. This is on you for making me step up. So again, more revelations here. Kat had deleted the comment Alicia had left on her YouTube video where she was clickbaiting her cancer. It seemed that every single time Kat tried to say anything, it would just become 10 times worse. There was simply no saving her. Kat also posted this same statement as a YouTube post on her YouTube channel. But as you might have guessed, most of these comments are completely against her. And of course, there's more to this because she's also been involved in a couple of other controversies, with one in particular involving lollies. But not only am I not interested in diving deep into that at all, I think the video is already way too long. Look, in a nutshell, Kat is what happens when you care too much about views and are willing to compromise your own ethics and morals. She used to make advice content. Great. She found a new niche that was bringing in more views. Awesome. But expecting to find new drama daily on this very strict upload schedule, especially just in the art and VTubing niche on Twitter most of the time, is a very unrealistic expectation. This inevitably led her to take on topics that aren't worthwhile or are just plain false, only for the sake of keeping up with her upload schedule and chasing that higher view count. During this entire process, she lost all sense of accountability and has developed into an unlikable narcissist. Is this the end of KatnChat or Catliente? Well, as I always say in every video I make, unless she loses her ability of making money, then no, nothing is ever over. However, these incidents have caused such a big, undeniable dent in her reputation that you might as well use it for a swimming pool. It'll be extremely hard to recover any reputation she might have left, especially in the VTubing community. My prediction is that she might try to transition into another niche, separate from VTubing, in order to start anew. I don't think it'll work though. The only thing that will work is an apology. Look, I think in most situations online, when creators get bullied by their audience to apologize, they shouldn't apologize. Many of the times, it's the audience trying to bully the creator in order to control them. It's this weird symptom of idol culture. But sometimes, apology truly is the only way to go, and this is one of those situations in my opinion. The only way for her to ever hope to work her way through to fixing her reputation is to just straight up drop an apology video and admit your mistakes while vying to never repeat this again. Finally, I'd really like to reiterate to anyone watching that no matter how bad things sound, never ever make up your opinion until you hear what the other side has to say. If everyone could follow this advice, then we'd probably be living in a utopia by now. Thank you so much for watching this ridiculously long video. I need a very long vacation, but I probably will be back in a week or a week and a half because I love you guys too much. And I'll see you in the next video whenever that is, okay? Thanks so much for watching until the end. Really, I appreciate it. Mwah.